Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Long Meadow Select Board meeting for April 1st, 2019. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight our meeting has a couple of hearings, one from the for Eversource and another one for Comcast for installation of equipment. We're also going to hear from the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission regarding a recent notification all of our residents got on water quality. We'll have an update on our solarized Long Meadow project and a few other routine programs, including a discussion of our raised crosswalk on William Street. And I did want to start by saying before I get going that we do have to stop for our petitions, our hearings, one at 7:05, another at 7:15, but we will try to fit resident comments in around that or before that. So I'll just start out if there are any announcements. I have a few. First announcement is a notice of vacancies that there are vacancies on town boards, and we're coming up to our quarterly appointments for filling vacancies. So if anybody's interested in applying for a vacancy on a town committee, please go to the town website, longmeadow.org, and under the select board committee vacancies, you have to be able to attend a short interview and also fill out an application at the town clerk's office. There's also an Arbor Day celebration. The Arbor Day celebration is Friday, April 26th. We'll probably repeat this at our next meeting at 11 a.m. And it's at Center School, and it represents Long Meadow as being a former tree town and celebrating of Arbor Day. The Library Department has asked us to announce that there's a fundraiser for Link to Libraries on Thursday, May 2nd, 5 p.m. at Samuel's Tap and Table. It does require a donation. If you're interested, please look at the library's website for more information. Also, there's a hearing that we've been notified that's April 10th in Enfield at the JFK Middle School regarding tolls on Interstate 91. I know it impacts some residents of Long Meadow. If anybody's interested in participating in the hearing in Connecticut on their tolls, potential addition of tolls to Interstates 91 and 95. Again, it's JFK Middle School, 6 to 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, April 16th. Final announcement I have is that this Saturday, April 6th at 7 p.m., Long Meadow High School will be appearing on As Schools Match Wits, which is WGBY, our public television station. And so anybody who's interested, please tune in. There is a rebroadcast time for anybody who misses it. I think it's the next day on Sunday, but it's Saturday, April 6th at 7 p.m. on WGBY. Does anybody else have any other announcements?
I just want to clarify, the meeting on the tolls in Connecticut is at 155 Raphael Road in Enfield. It's at 6. We have a select board meeting at 7, though. So
Okay.
I don't know if he'll make it, but...
Thank you. Any other announcements? No. Okay, I'm going to ask for any public comments. If there's anybody who has public comments, just indicate and I'll just call on you. Yes, sir. Please just come forward. Got a couple of minutes to give a public comment. As I've said before, we don't enter into dialogue, but have a seat. The microphone is for the cable TV so they can hear you at home. And just identify yourself, please.
My name is Larry Goldberg. I live at 159 Redfern Drive here in Long Meadow. And I bring a petition to leave with you guys from all the residents of the street asking that we no longer have commercial trucks over 9,500 GBW using the street.
Okay.
We ask that signs be put up on each end just stating no commercial traffic except for service.
Fine. If that's your only comment, sure. If you can leave that with our clerk, we'll make sure that everybody in the select board gets it.
I have one question.
Sure, go ahead.
What 9,500? What class is that?
It basically would allow people with pickups, when you get to 10,000, you're supposed to be commercially registered and commercially lettered. So what we're asking is that, like, it starts at 4 in the morning. Big Y, Dunkin' Donuts,
No, I mean,
Coca-Cola.
just on the truck size, would that, is that
Single
1
wheel-
tons and
no,
bigger?
Yeah, 1 ton, depending on the 1 ton, because they range, they can
Mm-hmm.
be over 10 and under 10, but most 1 tons are under 10.
Okay. Okay.
But what
So
we're
it-
looking to stop.
basically, it's commercial traffic then?
Correct. We get, tree companies cutting down the street, Big Y,
Right.
Coca-Cola, Dunkin' Donuts, and they start at 4 o'clock in the morning. They shake the houses.
Mm-hmm.
Some residents have had pictures fall off the wall, and they can't make either turn. Coming on from Converse to Redfern, they actually track over the guy's lawn
Mm-hmm.
with the trailer wheels, and we've had incidents at Redfern and Williams that involve the light poles being knocked over, as well as the truck drivers not wanting to let civilian cars make the move. They actually force us to back up. It's not wide enough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we actually have a 705 petition. It's probably going to be pretty quick, so if there's somebody here from Eversource, is there a representative here from Eversource? You'll just step forward. We'll take care of the hearing and accept the motion to
So moved.
open the hearing. Is there a second?
Second, yep.
Motion's made and seconded to open the hearing. All in favor? Okay, the motion is passed. Please identify yourself and tell us why you're here.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Fuller. Here to seek permission to relocate our first pole in line off of Pondside in front of the DPW yard at the train track crossing. We have some upcoming work over there where we're going to change out utility poles on either side of that crossing. And I guess for a while, we've had some trouble keeping one of the poles straight with the weight that's on it. So the petition that we are presenting is to move the first pole in line in front of the DPW yard to the south about 15 to 20 feet. What that'll allow us to do is anchor ahead of it and take the weight off of the pole that's on the opposite side of Emerson Road and better position it for the long-term use.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Pola? I just have one question. Because I've always wanted to ask this. So why don't you just put up another pole to take the strain off the wires? Why are you moving the pole and putting in a guide anchor?
Actually, it's an easy answer to that. By moving the pole a little bit further to the south, it gives us enough room to anchor ahead of it. The line itself originates from the pole that's ahead of the train crossing. So the weight of that is on that. It basically turns it into a corner pole.
Right.
So if I can take the tension off that first span and then anchor the pole line on the first pole in line, then there's no weight on that corner pole other than the straight line conductors in place already.
Okay, that's fine. I just didn't quite answer why we can't just put up another pole to take the same strain off of it, but I guess you guys know what you're doing.
Yeah, it wouldn't, there's not a lot of room to add another pole to it. Anchoring is the best solution for that.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions? Just a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second? Motion's made and seconded.
I'd like to place a motion on the table.
Go ahead. Mr. Foster.
Place a motion on the table. Do we accept the petition and grant as explained?
Okay.
Yeah,
Motion
sorry. Just before you finish the motion, it does
contingent upon,
the conditions set forth by the town engineer.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Upon recommendations. I couldn't bring it up, Stephen. I was just,
Yeah.
Okay. Motion's been made by Mr. Foster and seconded by Mr. Lowe. Any other comments or discussions? Hearing none. All those in favor of the petition? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're going to go back quickly to any other citizens' comments. And ma'am, if you come forward, please.
A copy of the conditions. I didn't see those just yet.
Okay. Sure.
Please state your name and
Yes,
address and.
My name is Kathleen Molinari, and I'm here speaking on behalf of the Silvio Conti Refuge, Wildlife Refuge, off of Route 5 in Long Meadow. And my husband, I've been working there for years, and it's a problem that has bothered me for quite some time, and I wanted to address it at this point because my life allows me to. So I am very concerned about the speed limit within the wildlife sanctuary refuge. It's notified as a refuge of 40 miles an hour. I had talked to the police department, safety, and actually called Mass Wildlife as well. I've used all of my resources in this and feel that the speed is excessive. My husband and I have seen multiple animals that have been in distress, and we're told that the solution would be to actually shoot the animals. If they're not even rehabilitated, there is a way that they can be rehabilitated, but I was told that the situation requires a gun and that the animals are put to terrible distress and consequently die, and we're coming across the animals left and right. Also, I had talked to the safety manager, mentioning the fact that the speed limit is high for the traffic that is going through. They're using it as an alternate route to get to work. They're going faster than that. My husband and I have had close calls with people driving excessively, coming very close to us, so that we feel that we're in danger. And heaven forbid there be a family or some children that are walking in the park, because the main route, the main access is that road, and it does belong to Long Meadow. And so Mass Wildlife isn't concerned about this, and my only other idea was to speak with the town of Long Meadow to try to alleviate the problem, to reduce the speed, to care for the animals, to be advocates of the animals. And I'd like to see something done. It's horrendous to see this, and the damage and the suffering that these animals are going through is astronomical, and they don't deserve it. Some of them are on endangered lists, and there was a big, huge turtle there not too long ago, and he's smashed to pieces, and it's just horrific, and I really wanted to stop. So person that believes in continuing on with things. I don't give up, and I'm hoping that this can be resolved one way or the other for the benefit of each of us who surely loves animals and realizes that this is a refuge, that they deserve a fair shake in the world, and they deserve safety just as we do as well. So it is a dangerous situation.
Thank you.
I think you said Route 5, but...
It's off of Route 5.
Is this Pondside Road, or...?
This is Bark Hall Road,
Right.
and it belongs to Long Meadow, and the Public Works is right down there.
I totally agree with you, Lord Mayor.
I'm glad to hear that. It is very discouraging to speak with the policemen, and I told them that I was afraid of my safety. I'm afraid for the animals, and the response wasn't at all agreeable. It was very sad.
I remember finding that turtle right after that happened.
Yes, and it was so sad. And I've seen little frogs and turtles and everything conceivable that has passed away, and people don't seem to care about the little baby ducks that are walking across the way to get from one water stream to the next. And there's just not the emphasis being placed on that, and it's just heartbreaking, it really is. And so I'm hoping to find advocates, if that's necessary, in order to make some moves. I know it's a lengthy process, but I'm willing to work with people.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate you for coming.
I thank you.
Are there any other comments, public comments? Please.
I'll sit right where she was. My name is Susan Altman. I live at 661 William Street. I'm here to commend the DPW for putting in the bump on William Street, that it has saved plenty of lives, because you should see the cars that speed till they get to that bump. I'm out with my dog walking all the time. It's just amazing. I lived right where the woman died from being dragged by a car on William Street a year and a half ago, and it's just such a wonderful thing, this bump. It just really stops people for 1 second, but it works. It really works, and I just had to say how happy I am that that was put in, and I really mean it.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
Now to Susan. Do you have contact information
Yeah,
She's not a resident.
she's not a resident.
Oh, you're not a resident?
No, the
Okay,
resident.
okay.
But I can provide you with my name and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other comments? No, hearing none, we're going to move on. It's just about 7:15. It's time for a hearing. We have from Comcast. Is there a representative from Comcast here for the hearing? Please come forward. I'd like to accept a motion to open the hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion's made by Mr. Foster and seconded by Mr. Lucusa. All in favor? Motion is open. If you folks could just identify yourselves, please, and just let us know why you're here.
Good evening, I'm Eileen Leahy, and I'm the Senior Manager of Government Relations at Comcast, and with me is
Ray Laborde, I'm a project coordinator for Comcast in the construction department.
Okay.
and we're here this evening asking for permission to set a pole so we can upgrade service to one of our customers on the area of Park Drive and Converse Street. This pole is necessary just to bring our service over to our customer. There's an easement involved, and we're having
We had several problems with the easement, bringing the feed in with existing. There was a line put up probably 30 years or so ago. It was a followed existing line, but I guess there wasn't an easement there, it wasn't showed on documentation. So we pursued to get an easement, and this has been going on for quite a few years, and we finally have an easement from one of the customers. They granted us an easement. Now we're looking to bring the line in across Converse Street and trench up to their easement and get into the backyard easement for the poles, so we can upgrade that service and get it to where it should be. Right now, it has a temporary fix. It's not performing well.
so it would
Yeah.
just be the one pole set.
Okay. I just have a couple questions. First of all, is this customer a Long Meadow customer or a Springfield customer?
These are Long Meadow customers.
And it looks like it's a rear feed from the backs of their houses?
It is. It's the customers on Converse Street
Yeah.
and Brittany Road. That easement, that rear easement runs in between their properties.
Okay, I drove the area, and I guess my concern is that you're asking for a pole on the north side of Converse Street where we have no poles. The north side of Converse Street is all underground utilities. There are no poles on the north side. So this would require us to literally put the first pole we have anywhere in town on the north side of Converse Street. The second concern I have is putting a wire over Converse Street. East of Burbank, there are no wires going over Converse Street, and west of Burbank, the only wires going over Converse Street are service wires going from the poles on the south side to houses on the north side. So your request is to put overhead wires someplace where we essentially have none, and put poles where we essentially have none. And so I guess my question is, why should we make this exception? Why can't you trench it?
Well, the reason we didn't want to trench is because Converse Street had just been paved. That was one of the reasons that we didn't want to have to.
Tunnel. Tunnel it.
Yeah, how about Flomo?
Depends on where gas is and things underneath the road. But can't always.
I mean, this pole becomes very, very permanent in a spot where we don't have poles. And it's a
Well,
wire
that's-
in a spot where we don't have wires.
Right.
Can you trench it underground?
We can look at that, but the reason we were still putting it there was back against the tree line so it wouldn't be seen. And just to bring to your attention, there is a pole farther down on Converse Street. Actually, it's the next crossing that's out on the north side of Converse Street. That would be right down by Normandy Road. There's a pole there also, a stub pole on the north side of Converse. This was the easiest way to ineffectively bother with the paving or anything on Converse Street. Flomos and moles underneath the road aren't always guaranteed. I mean, we prefer them, of course, we definitely would, but that's not always a guarantee depending on what's in the roadway as far as structures. So the safest way for us to do that was to place the pole.
How tall a pole are you proposing?
It'll be a 35-footer, so above the ground would be about 30 feet. We plan on putting it back against the pole, against the tree line, and then coming off of the pole from there.
That section of Converse, Stephen, when was it last repaved?
That was a part of the TIP project, because 2 years ago.
It was just, that's part of the one that just finished? Okay.
Right.
Just finished.
Park Drive, yeah.
And are there any channels under the road? I mean, I don't know if...
I don't
I've
think there's
seen
any conduit under there.
No,
Not that I know, not that I'm aware of.
So how's the service to those houses?
The service is fed
Now.
now through a temporary, it's fed with a drop, actually, a service drop. That's why their service is not where it needs to be. It needs to be a main line to bring the service levels up to proper levels for these folks.
Well, the diagram we have shows it says mounted quartzite vault.
That's a quasi flush mount, that's just a pull location. It's a flush mount, 24 by 24 flush mount vault.
But there's nothing there now.
There's nothing there now.
So service, somehow those houses are getting service. You're
No,
saying
they're-
it's a drop.
They are getting fed from, currently, they are getting fed from Normandy Road, Rugby Road. Between Rugby and Normandy, there's another easement that feeds off that pole, like I talked about earlier, that's on the north side of Converse Street by the corner of Normandy Road. And that feeds underground into the easement, that existing easement. And the aerial feed comes from that pole between the house on Rugby and Normandy through the trees to feed into the easement on Brittany, where the easement that we're talking about here on between Brittany and Converse.
So, and the purpose for this is just because your client isn't getting enough...
All the clients there aren't getting enough signal. So all the homes that are fed from that easement are on a temporary fix, and it's been this way for some time. We've tried to work with the homeowners on the other end of the easement, and that was to no avail.
And have they used, there's internal boosting things, if they...
Well, that's basically for in-the-house services, the boosters and things that they use in the house.
Yeah.
What happens is you amplify what they call noise, which is distortions by doing that. By bringing a main line, we can limit all that, bring their service levels up to where it should be, and get those folks back on proper levels and signal.
And so if they amplified it inside, it wouldn't reach a proper level? What would
Not
be the
really.
difference between one level and the other? I mean, just...
Well, their services drop, so their services will drop. Their digital will tile. If anybody's had our service at times, it will tile. It's where the picture freezes, or their internet's slow and lags, and things like that. And those are intermittent problems, but they're continual problems. So we're trying to fix that for them by putting the main line in. That'll take care of that problem for them. And that's our goal here, is the main line, to get that piece in there to take care of it. Yes, sir.
Is that vault even on Long Meadow property or Springfield?
No, that's a Long Meadow property. That's right off the edge of the road. I talked to the DPW about that. I had mentioned that to them, and they saw the plan actually before I brought it to you folks, and they were telling me, come see you folks first as far as the pole goes, but as far as the underground, as long as we got our permits and stuff, they didn't see an issue with that. I don't have to have that pole vault there. I just put it, it's easier to pull main line and work when you have a break point in the conduit system. I mean, it's not necessary. I can take it out and put a 90 in there if that's going to be a problem. It's not huge. It's not a big distance to pull. It's just a good spot to put a break in the conduits.
Yeah, I don't know, I guess I'm just feeling that if this is something we can delay, I'd rather do that, given some of the other conversations we're gonna have at tonight's meetings also.
Richard, I don't know if you had any comments. My only question is, I understand your first approach is put a pole, put a wire, but hearing that there are potential objections to a pole and a wire, is there an alternative? You can go back and see if we can't come up with some other plan. We're trying to solve this need for our customers.
I can certainly come back and I can look at doing the underground across the street, but like I said, we didn't want to intervene or be the first ones to cut into your folks' new road. I mean, that's,
And we don't want you to cut into our new
Right, I mean,
road. But
it's
the
a
issue,
long
though, is
bore.
there's an easement behind the house easements. It looks like it goes down behind, between the houses down the
That's
back.
correct.
I mean, there's no way you can put a main, feed that, through that off behind the house's easement rather than string it across the road.
well, that was the problem to begin with, is the people on the other side of that easement.
Don't want it.
Didn't want us to come through. They wanted to,
I
Attorney
mean, put
Goodman
yourself-
wanted us
They
to-
didn't want it, but gee, maybe you'll put it where we
they
don't want
wanted
it.
us to, he was
I hear
making
you.
life very difficult.
We're happy to look at the conduit. That's not an issue, and we understand your concerns. We've been working for a period of time to get this resolved, and
Yeah.
those other avenues haven't worked out, so now we're left with the pole, which, because we didn't want to, we knew the road was newly paved, we didn't want to be going in there and being, cutting up the road, but we can certainly look at that. That's not an issue at all. We can come back before you with what that would look like and how that would work, if that's what you'd like. That's not a problem.
I'm only one vote here.
No, I agree. I was going to recommend, I usually don't postpone and ask for other action, but I'd like to see a profile on where the utility's at and what difficulty it'd be to flow-mo this one in.
That's fine.
Since it is something that we can do.
Sure.
Sure.
We can absolutely look
Yeah,
at that.
and it's a good precedence to start flow-mowing in anyway. It's,
Yeah, I mean, I can't guarantee it, but I would think that maybe there's somebody who was recent enough, has some understanding of where some of the pipes are under there, how deep they are, and as opposed to we haven't dug the road in 20 years and have no clue where that is. That might be able to help a little
I
bit.
think your recent survey, do you think you had it all on there, Mario? Because they had looked at the utilities up there. Remember we aged them out, Stephen?
I know we did our stuff, and I think the gas company did a bunch of new work up there before we did the road project too,
Okay.
so I don't know what else is under there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you might even be able to flow-mow on top of everybody.
Well, it's, the problem with the underground bores, like I said, it's you're shooting into the unknown, they call it. It's, usually what happens is once the dig safe comes, we usually dig a window over the top of where a gas line is, so we can expose it
Right.
and actually see it.
Right.
Just for that factor, because
Right.
it is gas, and it's nothing to play with. It's, so we want to make sure that we're clear of gas and
That-
stuff like that. So
that
usually we
knows-
have to cut a window, like I said, in the roadway
That
above
was
it.
4 million volt underground. walls,
Exactly,
yeah.
that also, depending on what's under there for power as well.
Right.
But those are definitely factors that we have to look at.
Yeah, I seem to recall when we did Congress Street, we had a discussion with the gas company about the same thing, and they were shooting their gas lines under the road
Yeah.
too, where they didn't dig it up. So I know we just went through this.
Okay.
Well, a couple of weeks would not give us a significant delay on this anyway.
Yeah, if we're more than happy to have you relook at this, come back in 2
That's all
weeks.
I need.
Few weeks.
Yeah.
Do we need to refile anything, or can we just be put on for the end of the agenda?
We're going to say, we're going to suspend this hearing so you
Okay.
don't. How's that?
That's great, I
So
appreciate
we'll
that.
just, I guess,
we also make a motion to suspend the hearing.
and that way we can just reopen it, and you
Okay.
don't have to refile. How's that?
That's
Very
great,
good.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, so there's a
Yeah.
motion to suspend the hearing. It's made by Mr. Lefusa and seconded by Mr. Lowe. He beat you to it.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor? Well, hold on.
Usually with a public hearing,
Yeah.
I think you have to suspend to a certain date. and time.
Okay, well, we'll suspend. Thank you,
Till
Steve.
Tuesday,
So we'll-
April 16th at 7:10 or something like that.
Tuesday, April 16th at 7:10. Let's make it 7:15, just in case.
Very good.
Okay?
April
Thank-
16th at 7:15.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Yeah, April 15th is a holiday.
Thank you
so-
very much, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor of
Thank you.
suspending the hearing? Any opposed? Votes 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you, have a nice
Thank you.
evening.
Thanks very much.
2 weeks, right?
Yeah. See what we get. Okay. Next item on the agenda is actually old business. We're just going to see if there's any comments from the Select Board, and then we'll do any comments from anybody in the Select Board. Stephen, do you have a quick town manager's report?
I can defer, Mark, till later.
Jeez, I guess Stephen got to you, didn't? Where is he? There he is.
Yes, again, he
Well, we're gonna make
he reiterated many times that he wanted to get out of here fast. so-
We'll get you out of here fast. Just want to go through, approve some minutes. Can we get a motion to approve the March 4th meeting minutes?
So moved.
Any?
Second.
Made by Mr. Foster, seconded by Mr. Lefusa. Comments, questions, changes? All those in favor? Vote passes 4-0. March 14th, budget form and special meeting. from those minutes?
Make a motion to approve those?
Second.
Made by Mr. Lepuson, seconded by Mr. Foster. All those in favor? Motion passes 4-0. There's a March 18th regular Select Board meeting.
Motion to
Minutes.
approve.
It's the 19th? Okay, yeah, it's at 8. What?
We got one, 18th and 21st?
You don't have the 18th.
Oh, we didn't get them? Okay. So we're going to just go to the 21st, the special
Okay.
budget meeting. Is that?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
made by Mr. Foster and seconded by Mr. Lepuson. All in favor?
Abstain.
And one abstention, Mr. Lowe was not there. Okay. So we're going to go down to new business in our first is a review of our solarized Long Meadow project, and we're going to ask Mr. Steve Morantz, who's the guru of solarized Long Meadow, to come forward and kind of give us an update. Steve? Dressed for the occasion.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for this opportunity to bring everyone up to date on where the Solarized Long Meadow and Springfield, Solarized Springfield Long Meadow program is for Long Meadow. At this point in time, we have 15 signed contracts, which is 120 kilowatts of solar power that has been contracted to by citizens of Long Meadow. 5 installations have actually been completed. They're all waiting on Eversource to pull the trigger, and I believe one is going to actually go live tomorrow, so this program's actually happening. What these numbers mean in terms of Long Meadow as a green community is over the 20 to 25-year period, these systems will remain in effect. It's the equivalent of planting 38,500 trees, given that this Arbor Day is coming up, seems to be quite relevant. It's the equivalent of taking 332 cars off the road permanently. And these folks who have signed up for this program over the lifetime of their systems will save approximately $960,000. So from those point of views, I think we're off to a really good start. The sign-up for this program will end on May 31st. Other statistics, 63 folks have been visited and given proposals about what a solar system would have the effect on their houses. So I have a couple of thoughts for the 40-some-odd folks who've had proposals, and for those who are thinking about having a proposal about why this is such an interesting time to do this. Besides the obvious climate effects, which is reducing greenhouse gases and helping Long Meadow remain its green community, the financial aspects of this program are really quite impressive, because we are doing this with a bulk purchase with the City of Springfield, which I believe our selected installer thinks will provide a lot of houses. We have a really significantly good price for the solar systems being proposed here. And I encourage anyone who's had a proposal or is looking to have a proposal is to do comparative shopping, because you will find out that you will not be, on price, you will not be beaten by this program. The price of solar is coming down. I believe that in 3 years plus, what you would get is what you get the price now. There's some other economic incentives that make major impact on people's decisions. One is you, as a buyer of this of a solar system, will get a 30% tax credit. The federal government, in its wisdom, has decided after December 31st, 2019, that solar credit will go down to 26%. And after 2020, it will go down to 22%. And after 2022, it goes away. You also receive payments from the state called smart payments. You get smart payments for 10 years, depending on the electricity your system generates. Those are tiered. Right now, we're at the beginning of the SMART program. You will get more money today from the SMART program than you will next year or the year after as more people sign up. So the incentives are quite impressive. The only incentive that will not go away is the $1,000 you get from the state of Massachusetts, whether you install this year, next year, or the year after. So in terms of installing solar with the Solarized program, as the shirt says, if you're going to go solar, 2019 is the year to go. One or two other things I'd like to address. One, there seems to be some sort of, there's some folks out there who think that this is a really complex financial issue. So I want to address the complexity of the financial issue. To do this program, you can either borrow the money to purchase the system or just purchase the system outright. So the finances then involve, if you borrow, this is the more complex one, if you borrow, you have to pay off the loan. The money to pay off the loan will come from the money you don't pay on your electric bill, because the complex financial situation with your solar system is you have either no electric bill, a very low electric bill, or a negative electric bill. So you have basically, we'll say you have no electric bill, so the money you save from not paying electric bill, the money you get from the SMART program is going to be significantly or larger than the money you paid for your loan. So you're cash flow positive right off the bat. You pay off the loan in 5 to 10 years, you then have 10 to 15, 20 years of essentially no-cost electricity. For the other complex situations, you just outright purchase your system without a loan. You then therefore have a low-cost electricity, no-cost electricity, or negative electricity for as long as you own your system. I'm not sure why anyone would think this is a complex financial transaction. Lastly, some folks have said, well, come on, Steve, what's in it for you? What's in it for the volunteers? And so, full disclosure, I have 5 grandchildren, so the world they grow up in is important. This shirt came from the state of Massachusetts to all the volunteers. This hat came from Solar Flare, the installer we have chosen, and those are the goodies that I've received from what's in it for me. And lastly,
I hope you reported those to the ethics committee.
Yes, it's a modest conflict of interest. If I had not had a system on my house already, that might be a conflict of interest. Lastly, I'd like to thank the Select Board for really being supportive of this, and our town manager, Mr. Crane, who occasionally I've had maybe some environmental differences of opinion with, as far as his help for the Solarize program. We could not ask for more. We think, I think with 15 signed contracts, with 2 months to go, we're on pace for what we thought we would do, and he's been extremely helpful. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we're doing well.
Tom?
Yeah, question, just because I think heating homes is such a big issue, especially now and in the future. Has any research been done on people using solar to heat their homes, either like just during the daytime hours and to bridge through the evenings, or full-time?
Well, the best methodology to use solar to heat your home, and we actually thought about doing this when we did the Solarize program. There's one of the state's programs is Solarize Plus, and so we figured let's just do one step at a time. But Solarize Plus says not only can you buy a solar system at this reduced rate because of the bulk purchasing, but there's also mini splits, these heat pumps that I don't know if you've seen them on outside of people's houses. They run on electricity, and so if your electricity is no cost, low cost, heat pumps will actually do a very good job of heating your house. And actually, our kitchen is the warmest room in the summer and the coldest room in the winter, so we have one of these things put into our kitchen. And the gentleman who installed it said actually he decided it was less expensive for him to use, because they're economical now. If you're running them off your solar system, that's the best way to go. So if you were really going to build a new house today, just from scratch, solar, heat pumps, and probably something called geothermal would be the best way to go. And somewhere down the line, probably in the next 3 to 7 years, the concept of storing electricity. So, once the sun goes down, you're not generating anymore, but if you can store it, that would be, and that's coming down the road, that these batteries are getting more efficient and being built better all the time. But heat pumps and solar are the answer to your question about helping to heat your house.
And these units could be retrofit to the future if there is storage?
Yes, well, yes, and actually you can get storage now. The program we have, because we had a bunch of people ask about it, well, what happens if you have a power outage? If you have a power outage, you're not going to get power unless you have a backup generator. But with storage, you would get power until if the sun's gone for a couple of days, you're going to eventually run out of power. But with storage system, the problem right now is they are expensive. You can get them. The batteries do exist, but they're not cheap to do today.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Elon Musk will get you.
He's working on it, among other things, I think.
So I just have a comment. It's not so much for you, Steve, as it is for the town. I've actually been reading the last few days about the new state solar programs. Dr. David Miller has contacted me about somebody who he's talked to, and for everybody at home, the SMART program that Steve Morant just referred to is kind of the next generation after the original. They called them Solar 1, Solar 2, where they were giving these solar energy credits.
SRECs is what they were called.
SRECs.
Yeah.
SREC 1, SREC 2, which was the solar energy credits, and they've replaced it with this SMART program of smart payments. And there's smart payments to the generator, which can be a homeowner, or to a large organization. But there's now large organizations who are putting up massive systems that the utilities are required to pay these companies for their power at a pretty good clip. And the companies, in return, to get their power in the system, are offering rebates to towns or large electric users, such as the town of Longmeadow. That's a per kilowatt hour. It's not, Paul, just so you know, it's not a power purchase agreement. It's not it's not like the agreements we have now but it's literally a pay per kilowatt that we use, and it may be something we want to look into, because although the money they're offering now isn't a whole lot, it's in the tens of thousands of dollars potentially for us to take it, so these folks can participate in this SMART program. And the more I looked into, I sent a note to the DOER to find out if it sounds too good to be true, is it or not. Let's see what they say. But I think it's something we might come back to, because
Well, my recommendation is to talk to our state legislators, because with the big systems, but right now the SMART program is booked. If Longmeadow said we want to build a 50 kilowatt system now, we couldn't do it.
Right.
They've hit the cap. There's a cap, and the legislature needs to remove that cap.
well, but this is for the people who've already bought into it, who will give the town some credits so that the utilities will pay them more money, I think. Anyway, we're going to find out more about it. Steve, thanks a lot for any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I had one question. I noticed that recently Panasonic was talking about bringing out a panel that was like 25% more power for the same size panel. You have an advanced panel, I think, in your proposals? Is that the higher energy panel?
The standard panel is 300. That's
Right.
the base one, which shows that things have improved. The panels we have in our house are 270. The advanced panel is 330. I assume you could probably pay a whole lot more.
Yeah, it seemed like there were 400 on the new one.
But unless you go really way up, the efficiency in terms of what you're actually going to generate kilowatt hour wise is not going to be significantly. It's the efficiencies. I think a lot of the efficiencies have already been made, but I don't know enough about the Panasonic panel to say that. But they are increasing the efficiency.
I used to believe
over
that
time.
when they brought out the first transistor radio.
Well, they got a little better.
Yeah.
Steve, thanks.
But the point is, for anyone who wants to wait, I'm going to wait for the better technology. In the meantime, you're paying for your electric bill every day.
That wasn't a promo to wait. It was just the fact that
Yeah,
the
no,
technology.
I assume 5 years, that's what I said, 3
Yeah.
years from now, everything will be cheaper than it is today, and that will be the cost that you're going to pay today because of the solarized program.
What are their thought process inside the solar program for going back and retrofitting homes in X amount of years? Is there thought being given to that when these new super panels are available?
The state has not given me any indication that they're thinking about that.
Okay.
Hey, Mark,
Yeah, go ahead.
just one quick comment. I want to thank Steve for his comments, but also thank him for his effort. It's one thing to kind of volunteer in a board and committee and go to a meeting once a month or something like that, but the work that he and the other volunteers have put in, day out, multiple evening events to meet the installers and everything else. I can tell you that he's putting a lot of time into it with me, but I want to commend him for his work. Like other than the T-shirt and hat, doing it just because he believes in it and he believes it makes Longmeadow a better place. So I want to thank him for the work he's put in.
Thanks. Okay, thanks, Steve. Next item of business is a review with the Springfield Water and Sewer Commissioners on our water quality excursion. And Pete, were you going to come up, or you're just going to listen?
No, at this point, I was just going to...
Okay, that's fine.
Go through the program with their PowerPoint and what they have, and we can...
Great. Just while they're getting set up here, I just want to acknowledge that this is a review of the water quality issue. This is not a rate issue. This is not a supply issue. This is a water quality review. And so we're going to try to hold our discussions to that topic or those topics. So yeah, if you folks could just introduce yourselves again. The microphones are for the folks at home so they can hear you, and we'll kind of dim them.
I'm Josh Schimmel, Executive Director of the Sprinkle Water and Sewer Commission, and we had given a version of this presentation to Pete and Mario probably a month ago or so, and they had asked us to come and present to you. I have Jim Larla, our Director of Operations here, and Jamie Bartak, our Communications Manager as well, to help with the presentation. And Sue, where are you? And Sue is our lab manager as well. And this is the team that is really working pretty hard on all of our water quality and delivering water to you. So the meeting we had a month ago was with all of our wholesale customers. I'll let Jamie, once this is up and going, walk through the presentation. And there's about 14 or 15 slides here, but feel free to jump in if you have questions, if that works for you all.
Great.
And then we can wrap it up and have a dialogue if there are any further questions.
Thank you very much. Okay. And if we don't get our AV system, we'll...
I can talk about bears, too.
No, we got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for having us this evening. My name is Jamie Bartak. I'm the Communications Manager for the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission, and I'm here with Jim Larla, Director of Water Operations. So we're here to...
Jamie, can you just move your microphone around your computer just so people at home can hear there? That's great.
Thank you.
Again, that's for the folks at home, not for us.
Yep. So we're here to talk about what are called disinfection byproducts. That is the name of the compounds that you received notices about in Longmeadow recently. And we already did our introductions. So just very quickly, the Springfield Water and Sewer Commission is a regional water and wastewater utility. In terms of our water operations, we serve 10 communities in the Lower Pioneer Valley. About 250,000 people a day drink our water. And Longmeadow is one of our wholesale communities. So just to give a quick background, total trihalomethane and haloacetic acids are what are called disinfection byproducts. And how they are formed is when dissolved natural organic matter, which is naturally occurring in any sort of surface water supply, such as our reservoir, that enters our reservoir through rain, snow, just regular sorts of runoff. And when that interacts with chlorine, which we use to disinfect the water from microorganisms, it creates TTHMs and HAA5. These disinfection byproducts have been regulated since the late 1990s, and the regulations were recently updated and implemented in 2012. EPA creates the Safe Drinking Water Act regulations. Mass DEP implements them in Massachusetts. The regulatory limit for TTHM and HAA5 is also known as the maximum contaminant level, or the MCL. And for disinfection byproducts, they're based on the potential health risks following a lifetime of consumption. So drinking them at elevated levels for a lifetime has been shown in some studies to create health risks. So, wrong way. Excuse me. So in the fourth quarter, Longmeadow, which oversees the town of Longmeadow, oversees its own distribution system. We sell the water, and then the town takes the samples for DBPs. And the TTHMs in the fourth quarter reached an operational evaluation level exceedance, which is not a violation, but it is just kind of a warning that they're getting high. And then by the first quarter in February, the samples taken did exceed the MCL for TTHM and HAA5, which resulted in the public notification that you all received. So, Jim. Oh, sorry, one more. This is a very simple schematic of our drinking water treatment system. Just the two basic areas to focus on are the rapid sand filtration and the slow sand filtration. That's where NOM, or natural organic matter, is taken out. And just in general, rapid sand filtration is a newer technology. It tends to take out more NOM than the slow sand filtration, which we try to use less of.
Great, thanks, Jamie. Good evening. So as Jamie indicated in the previous slides, the water quality in the fourth quarter and the first quarter, as received in the town, had higher than normal limits of disinfection byproducts. And there are a few reasons for this occurrence that we wanted to talk about tonight. The main reason was related to the amount of record rainfall that we had in the watershed during the last calendar year. The record rainfall in the watershed mobilized a lot of organic matter into the reservoirs and then into the treatment plant. And what happens is the treatment processes that we have at the plant can only remove a certain amount of the organic matter that comes in the raw water. So as Jamie just indicated, at the treatment plant, we really have two parallel plants. One is a slow sand filtration plant, which produces lesser quality water, and then we have a rapid sand filtration plant, which produces higher quality water. And when we have a lot of organic matter coming into the plant, it essentially reduces the rapid sand filtration plant's capacity to produce water. So we have to rely a little bit more on the slow sand filtration process to meet the production for our customers. So essentially what was happening is, because of higher organics, we were using a process that treats the water not to quite the same standard as the other process does. And when you have higher organic matter in the water, it exerts a higher chlorine demand, so we're using a little bit more chlorine in the fourth quarter and the first quarter than we normally would have.
Now, are there any programs to look at the watershed to try to reduce the organic matter getting in there, especially now if rains are, we're getting frequent rains, maybe it's climate change, I don't know, but
Yeah.
Is there anything done with the watersheds?
It's hard to control the raw water coming in beyond what we do. So a well-protected watershed is probably the best way of controlling the quality of the water coming into the plant. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of ownership in the watershed lands that surround the reservoirs. I think what was happening in the next slide, which will show this, is that it was really the high intensity rainfall and the large amount of rain that we received mobilized a lot of these natural organic materials.
I would just, Jim, not to interrupt, but I would add, we have a pretty aggressive watershed management program, so keeping a healthy forest is really important to keeping the best water quality you can. And we invest in purchasing land, which is really important, because if you own the land, you control it. And then having staff who specialize in forest management with an emphasis on water quality is one of the things we do, and we're really proud of the job we do there. But as Jim said, it's really hard to control Mother Nature, but if you have a healthy forest, you do what you can. So we are invest in that regularly every year, and pretty aggressive in that piece.
Okay, thank you.
So the next slide, there's a couple of things going on in the next slide. The bar graph elements here that you see show the 2018 rainfall, which is sort of the dark navy blue bars, and this is by month across the bottom. The x-axis there shows the monthly rainfall. And then the light blue shows the average rainfall from 1974 to 2017. So about 40 plus years average rainfall that we see in the watershed versus 2018. So you can see in July, September, October, November, December were all above normal rainfall. And you can see that the other lines show the light blue line that shows there is the organic matter in the raw water coming into the treatment plant in 2018 by month. And then the one below that, the purple line, shows the raw water organics coming in 2017. So what it essentially shows is because of the high rainfall, starting around October, there was a very steep increase in the amount of organic matter coming into the treatment plant. And when we look at our historical data, the highest time we saw organic matter of that magnitude coming into the plant was really around the time of Hurricane Irene. So you think about significant storms, very intense rainfalls will tend to mobilize a lot of natural organic matter in the watershed. So when you look at the next slide, this shows the relationship between the raw water organic matter coming into the plant, which is shown as the blue line, and then the red line shows what the chlorine dosage was at the plant. So again, you look starting around October, there was the steepest incline in chlorine demand, and as a result, as what Jamie had indicated earlier, it's sort of the combination of the organics remaining in the treated water and the chlorine dose that we use produces these disinfection byproducts that have been problematic the last couple of quarters. So we've been working on several short-term strategies relative to water quality. Really what we're trying to do is optimize the treatment systems that we have to get the best water quality out of them that we can. So one of the ways is to reduce the amount of chlorine that we use. So what we're doing is we're optimizing the chlorine dosing by reviewing the dosing that we're doing at the plant, looking at the effects in the treatment, in the distribution system on a daily basis and adjusting that as necessary. We've also done coagulant optimization trials. A coagulant is a chemical that's added to the water to help remove the natural organic matter. So we've seen through one of the new water treatment chemicals that we're using a 25% increase in the amount of organic matter that we can remove. So that's a good thing in terms of treatment. So we're happy with the results of those trials. Our consulting engineers have told us that if we reduce water storage time or the water age in the system, that will also have some beneficial reduction in disinfection byproducts. So we looked at our water storage tanks at Proven Mountain, and we've reduced some of the storage quantity that we have there in the storage facility. We've also been told that adding storage tank mixing will have a positive effect in removing some of the HAAs that are coming out in the water. We have purchased storage tank mixers, and we're starting to install those right now as we speak. A couple of other things that I want to highlight is that, as I indicated a minute ago, the rapid sand filtration really is our go-to treatment system. We're using that treatment system to the maximum extent possible that we can. We have been able to run in the first quarter solely on the rapid sand filtration system, which results in better water. So that's our focus, is producing water to the extent that we can using that filtration system. And then we're constantly sampling and evaluating our raw water intakes to see if there's a way that we can get better quality water coming in from the reservoirs into the treatment plant. Okay. And then longer-term solutions. We've actually been working on a facilities plan since fiscal year 16, looking at new treatment processes, because we realized that the treatment processes that we have at West Parish Filters have some limitations to them, as have been exhibited by the fourth quarter and first quarter results that you've seen here in town. So some of the recent work that we've done is we completed some work with UMass, working with researchers there on a benchtop study to look at pre-oxidation as a process to remove natural organic matter. We're going to do sort of a full-scale, or not a full-scale, but a larger-scale pilot treatment plant starting in the summer of 2019. We'll be evaluating pre-oxidation to follow up on the UMass study. We'll be looking at new filtration options, looking at a clarification step, and also the use of alternative coagulants. All of these things that we're evaluating are geared toward removing a higher amount of organic matter from the raw water that comes into the plant. So as I indicated, we started in FY16, and we're continuing to look at these new treatment processes.
I have a question.
Sure.
What can we anticipate, an increase in rates as you implement these?
Yes, we've got a couple slides that will address that,
Okay.
so I'll move right into that. So the longer-term solutions, which will result from our ongoing work with the consultants on the facilities plan and process selection will be informed from the pilot treatment testing that we'll be doing in the next fiscal year. They're going to lead to long-term solutions, which essentially are the construction of new treatment processes at the treatment plant to provide higher quality water to our customers. So as the program is laid out right now on a preliminary basis, we've identified a project that's called Project 1 on the slide, slated for construction in FY '23 through '25. It's a $69 million project that would involve a 60 million gallon per day dissolved air flotation clarification process, upgrades to our existing rapid sand filters, providing upgrades to the electrical system to be able to provide power to the new treatment process, and looking at a new chemical storage and feed building. So this is really our high priority investment at the plant to be able to routinely meet the regulatory requirements for water quality. And then we have a couple of other projects that are outlined after Project 1 is done. Project 2, which is currently scheduled for construction in FY '26 and '27, is about a $23 million project that involves looking at new raw water control house and valving for the 72-inch raw water main, which is the main water feed to the treatment plant. So we need to make sure that we can get water safely to the plant to treat it. Also looking at rehab and replacement of a 42-inch raw water main, which serves as a backup to get raw water to the treatment plant. And lastly, the last component of that, project number 2, is the construction of a new laboratory building and upgrades to the existing operations building that's out at the site right now. And then project 3, which is longer term, is slated roughly around FY '33 timeframe for construction. It's a $40 million project, which would involve expansion of the plant. So expansion of the dissolved air flotation capacity, increasing capacity in rapid sand filters, providing new flocculation tanks, and would ultimately eliminate all of the slow sand filtration process that I've talked about. So Project 3 really would be driven by production and capacity needs, so growth in the lower Pioneer Valley, a need to meet more water production needs. So it's slated tentatively out around FY '33 based on projections. So looking ahead, showing on the last slide, we have disinfection byproduct sampling coming up, or the town does, in May, August, and November. We're anticipating that disinfection byproducts will likely remain elevated for the remainder of 2019. And part of the reason for that is that the maximum contaminant level that Jamie talked about is based on what's called a locational running annual average. So it's an average of 4 quarters. So if we have a really great quarter in the second quarter, it gets averaged with the previous 3 quarters. So it makes it a little more difficult to drop below the compliance limit that's set in the regulations. So we're continuing to work with your water department and DPW director in preparing reports to Mass DEP as they're required relative to the MCL exceedances.
Yeah. Jim, thank you for the, I don't know, are you wrapped up?
Yep.
I just have a couple of questions. You talked about the difference between the rapid sand filtration system and the slow sand filtration system, and you said that, I think you said that when you use the slow sand filtration system, it's not as effective as removing these organic materials. And so I guess the question is, why do you use that? Is it a capacity issue? Is it when demand comes high, you have to bring a second system on?
It is.
So is it fair or unfair to say that increased demand has caused a reduction in quality at some point because you're putting through more throughput using a less effective or efficient filtering system?
Under the vast majority of sort of normal water quality circumstances, we can produce high quality water with the rapid sand filtration plant without the need to rely much on the slow sand filters. It was really the high organic matter coming in the fall that reduced our ability to produce water with the rapid sand filter plant because they were getting clogged with a lot of the organic matter comes in and it clogs those filters, and it requires a lot of backwashing of those. So in order to even meet a winter demand, because of the poor water quality coming in, we had to supplement the flow with the slow sand filters.
Okay, and I guess I saw in your capital plan, some upgrades, but would you not be replacing slow sand filtration with rapid sand filtration if it's more effective, and you put that in as a, my sense is, and where I'm going with this is, excursions are becoming more the norm than not norm, and high periods of rainfall, I think Tom indicated, is, may be coming more and more often.
Yes.
And we know demand is up. We've got a jumbo customer downtown Springfield who's, I remember the whole reading, it says, yeah, we think we can handle it, the demand will go up, but we think we can handle the demand for all that extra water, and yet I'm looking at it and saying, is this a byproduct of an MGM kind of thing, where the demand is up so much higher that if the demand were lower, we wouldn't be onto the slow sand filtration system, and the water quality wouldn't, and yeah, I'm looking for, how do we justify this capital? And go back to MGM and say, this is an impact of your water demand here, that says kick in something for our water system, instead of saying you're fine, there's nothing there, because we're all going to be paying for this, and if there's any kind of a capacity concern, I think it ought to go to the people who are creating the capacity, not normal growth, not municipal growth, but somebody who came in and said, don't worry, we're never going to demand much water.
I think it's really important
Hey,
to...
Jamie, can I just ask, Josh, I'm sorry, can we just ask that you use
Sure.
you can just grab a microphone just so people can hear you? We can stretch this on the other side. Thanks, just for people who don't.
Yep. I think it's really important to get, to be clear about the demand and the issues that we're having. So there's not an increased demand in volume of water that's been, that's led to the issues that you guys are experiencing. It's raw water quality. And so it's an operational parameter of how the water gets treated. The dirtier the water, the harder it is to treat it in simplistic terms. And so it puts more stress on the system. We're really, really fortunate in the fact that we have essentially 2 water treatment plants. We have a redundant system that we've maintained and operated for decades, close to 100 years. So we have a 50-year-old plant, which is the new plant, and we have a 100-year-old plant, which is the old plant, and they both produce drinking water the majority of the time that meets all the regulations. The issue that we're having is raw water quality coming into those plants stresses their ability to treat, and it requires more maintenance. And when you're doing more maintenance, you can't be filtering water, and so you have to rely on some of your redundant system. Both systems are utilized across the world effectively to treat water and provide excellent water and water quality. We just prefer to give the highest water quality we can. We're a purveyor of water. That's what we do. Right. So we're fortunate in the fact that we have a redundant water system, and when we have to lean on it, we absolutely do, and I think everybody in the lower Pioneer Valley benefits from that. I think the plan moving forward, as Jim has said, is for the past 3 years, we've been really looking at a planning phase of what the future is going to look like, how regulations are changing, what's happening with weather, can we consistently meet water quality standards as they are today, and what are they going to be in the future, and capacity is an issue in that regard too. We have plenty of water, so the capacity is not an issue at the plant. It's raw water quality and our ability to meet regulations that change fairly frequently. And so the reality is that there's a $150 million investment, plus or minus, that's going to take place in the next 15 to 25 years. And that's just the reality. And I think it's no secret to anybody who pays attention to utility that the water sector has been underinvested in for decades across the country, and I can say that we're no different. I think in the past decade we've had a fairly aggressive capital investment plan, fairly aggressive operations plan, and kind of refining how we treat our water. But it's time for investment, and we're really going through the steps, as Jim and Jamie have said. We've done studies with UMass. We're going into a pilot plant, and from that pilot plant, we'll get information that'll feed our decision-making for what the right technology is for the future, with consideration of all of the items that we just discussed, with changes in the regulations, changes in raw water quality, and future needs. So, this is a fairly narrow and not insignificant concern that you have in terms of water quality, but it's a much bigger issue in terms of overall investment, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Does anybody else have Questions, Tom?
Well, I guess, if we're looking at all that kind of money, this huge investment, I guess one part is, yes, when your newest facility is 50 years old, there's probably better technology. Now, in our town, we've had to invest quite a bit. We've asked all the homeowners to contribute money to take care of our runoff, and we've looked at how to make our water that's going into the Connecticut River cleaner. I guess I would just ask you the same thing, any of the latest plantings or settling pools or anything like that to improve the watershed. I know you have folks who are doing that, but I'm sure we're not the only community in Western Mass, that are, or maybe we're the only one in Western Mass, but the only ones dealing with this kind of a rainwater situation, and it's going to cost a lot of money,
It is, on both sides of that equation, water and wastewater and stormwater, obviously, so.
And we just got hit for a wastewater charge that went up. I don't know, Paul, when did it go up? Or, actually.
Proposed.
Huh?
It's proposed, the stormwater utility rate.
No, I mean wasn't it just a couple of years ago that our wastewater, our sewer price went up significant, like 20%?
It's been the water. The sewer's been pretty consistent. It's the water cost of the water units that have gone up.
I just have a question. I don't know if it's for Jim, for you, or for Josh, but we've had a debate back and forth in our town about whether Western Massachusetts, particularly Long Meadow or Pioneer Valley, needs to be pushing on water conservation. I know you're in the business of selling water, but we've got these federal guidelines of water usage per person per year or per day or per month, and Long Meadow's pretty up there, I guess, and in terms of water usage. And what's the Springfield Water and Sewer Commissioner's take on that whole concept?
That's a good question, because, we may not all be on the same page. But it's a double-edged sword, right? Conservation's a good idea across the board, nobody's going to argue that.
But you're selling water.
But when consumption goes down, our revenue goes down, and that gets...
Then the price per unit goes up the next year.
Right, the cost to make water does not, investing in things is one thing, but the cost to operate doesn't go up that much. So whether you're making X or Y, your overhead to make it costs the same. And so, but your revenue decreases. And so it's a difficult thing. And, the good thing is that the forefathers who put our system together put a really, really robust system together. So we have a 2-year storage capacity in our system. So if you go back to the record drought of 2016, or 2016, the record drought where people were having, no lawn watering and restrictions on what they could do with the water. We had plenty of water in the bank, so to speak, and so we maintained a 2-year supply while everybody else was dwindling, and some reservoirs ran dry in other parts of the state. So we're fortunate. Conservation is really important to us because I think we have to protect all these natural resources that we're the stewards of, and so I think we kind of balance all of that. So it's an important factor, but we sell water.
Yeah. Stephen.
Just one quick comment about the capital. We, as you guys remember, we just recently renewed our long-term agreement with the Water and Sewer Commission. And our share, Long Meadow's share of the capital improvements, is based on a formula that's tied largely to our consumption and how many of the assets that are being upgraded actually carry water that comes to Long Meadow. So
on the wastewater, you're on the wastewater. That's the wastewater.
Oh, the wastewater side, right?
Yes.
But I thought the water had a similar.
No, the water system is kind of a uniform system. So because we backfeed the system from every other corner of the system, it's considered one system. So you touch everything. So if a pipe breaks over here, we can get water to you another way. So the function of those contracts is a little different in what you're responsible for. But at the end of the day, it's still based upon your portion of the operating cost and the annual cost. And you also have to remember the debt service is in your operating costs. We kind of front all of the debt service and the funding of those projects up front. You only pay for those pieces that show up annually.
Rich?
Yeah, could you go back to the other slide, please? I noticed that the project slide. Project 1, 23 through 25, that all seems to be fairly directly related to the reduction of trialomethanes. When we get into phase 2, how, as versus to phase 3, how is phase 2 a higher priority for the reduction of trialomethanes and suspended solids and all that than project 3?
Well, excuse me. Project 3 is essentially an expansion of Project 1. So you're adding there'd be additional capacity for the new treatment processes. So that would be an upgrade based on production needs, so future production. That's why we don't need that now. We're not anticipating needing that for a number of years. Yeah.
Okay. So number 1 is the main, number 2 is the operational side, and then 3 is future.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think any other questions? We're just about ready to wrap up. Josh, I have one more quick question that has nothing to do with quality, but I want to, we've had a discussion, we are also, the reason you're here tonight, we also serve as the Water and Sewer Commissioners for the town of Longmeadow, and so one of the issues we have is setting rates. Do you have any examples of other towns that you provide to, or even the city of Springfield, with tiered rates, or are they mostly flat rates?
It's flat rates. There are some laws in Massachusetts against tiered rates that you just have to be careful about. There is an exception in Hampden County, though, I am aware of. But no, we don't do tiered rates in terms of like a decreasing block rate or an increasing block rate. No, we have flat rates, and we have categories for rates. Municipal. You guys are a wholesale contractor, residential, commercial, industrial, etc.
Just as your reference, I worked for 34 years for Monsanto, so I know, I've been to your site plenty of times.
We've been to your site plenty of times, too. So
when you guys mix your products is when we have problems.
Anyway, thank you very much for coming tonight. Appreciate your participation.
Really, we're glad to be here. So anytime, we're really fortunate to work with your DPW folks. They do a great job. So anytime you want us to be here, we're glad to come and kind of chat about some of the things that are going on. You guys are a good customer, and we'd like to keep it that way.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is a study on trash that was done for the town of East Longmeadow by Liz Bone. We're privileged to have Liz. She's a resident of Longmeadow, and she's going to give us a review of that and potentially see how that may have applications for the town of Longmeadow. Liz, if you want to come forward, she's.
I see our other recycling committee members.
She's bringing up
here as well.
She's bringing up the reserves. The reserves. It's Arlene.
You want Erwin?
Yeah. Okay.
Erwin, we got a microphone right over here for you if you want it. Liz, just introduce yourself if you don't mind.
Liz Bone, 34 Elizabeth Circle. I just want to let you know that I'm here as a Longmeadow resident tonight who just happens to work in East Longmeadow and did a trash study. And Arlene. Oh, and also I work with the Recycling Commission.
Do you want me to introduce myself too?
Sure.
Arlene Miller, 680 Greenwich Road, and I'm on the Recycling Commission with Liz.
So I just wanted to go through a quick timeline of what I did in East Longmeadow, just to give you a little idea of what happened. I started my job in late 2017, and we had an issue with our trash over Christmas, and it was not picked up because of trash issues with the trucks, with the workers, with the weather. And after that, we fined our hauler $55,000 for breach of contract and for not picking up the trash. And we also decided at that point that our trash costs were going up. We're throwing away a lot of trash, and we needed to do something about it. So let's fast forward. Over the summer, we asked our hauler to start tagging because that is in our contract, and tagging means to leave our tags blue, a blue tag on each trash can that was over our 35-gallon limit. And so they were willing to tag as much as they could. We also decided that since we have a 35-gallon barrel limit, and Long Meadow also does, and that is because we are part of a grant where we have as pay-as-you-throw bags, and that is one requirement, that you have to have a 35-gallon barrel or less to get the grant. So I had an intern. We started driving around and seeing how many people had oversized barrels, and we would say probably 60% of people had over 35-gallon barrels. So we decided then that we are going to have an end date of picking up large oversized barrels, and we did an educational campaign. We also went to our town council to let them know exactly what we had planned to do and to get their okay. We advertised in the newspaper, we did press releases, we did a lot of social media. We also, throughout the whole process, we did letters to our residents. Whenever they did get a tag on their barrel, we would send them a little letter saying, and I think it should be in your packet, our violation letter. And I did some, what's it called, like a newscast on the East Long Meadow TV station. And we also created a mailer. I don't know, I think I put it in your packet, but I'm not sure. And this is something that Long Meadow is also using. Producing, I should say. And we also did robocalls. So then in November, we had a drop dead date of November 26th, and we stopped picking up barrels, oversized barrels. And we received a couple complaints over that past month, but to be honest, it wasn't that bad, and right now we are pretty good. Mostly everyone is still in compliance. Sometimes people have some extra bags and things like that, but our hauler's good in tags. I also go around and tag myself.
Liz, can I just ask you?
Yeah.
So you said that it was Christmas of 2017 when the problem kind of started. It was by November of 2018, so 12 months later was your drop dead date of compliance. So that was a 12-month period, approximately?
Right. I mean, it was very slow start, and we, to be honest, producing that mailer did take about 4 months.
Okay.
And we also wanted to see firsthand what it looked like on the streets to see if there was actually a problem.
Okay.
So I think you have a spreadsheet in your folder, and what I just did was I showed you our numbers in East Long Meadow of the trash tonnage and this is just the data that I have because March just ended yesterday, but from December, January, and February, we had a 18% decrease in trash from 1 year. And the savings is about almost $13,000. And that would be a projection for like a year's worth, about $53,000. So I took that example of an 18% decrease and applied it to Long Meadow's numbers, and with Long Meadow's trash to be about $46,000 a year.
So if I can ask you a question, where did the trash go? I mean, you had an 18% decrease in trash.
Well, some into recycling.
So
Right.
did they have a equivalent increase in recycling that could be measured?
Everybody has to ask that question.
Well, you gotta,
Annoying question.
the trash has to go somewhere, Arlene.
Well, we did wonder that, because you're right. We did have a increase in recycling, not quite 18%, but we also say that a lot of people, reuse things. They maybe bring it to a charity shop instead or something like that. Another thing I forgot to add was that at the same time, we also started a curbside textile program. And it's a free program. It's called Simple Recycling. And what they did, I think it's in your packet as well, they give every resident a pink bag, and they will pick up a bag of textiles on the curb on your regular trash day every week. So the first month,
Ten,
yeah, or 10,000, or, sorry.
Yeah, so you had 7,700 on the
7,700 pounds of clothing in 1 month. So
What are they doing with the clothing then?
So what they do is
Great question.
they sell off the good stuff, and then the stuff that they can't sell, they shred it for insulation, they recycle it. What other kind of recycling?
They use it for rags. There's three tier. One is sell it, next is rags, and the next is
So the people that are actually
Stuffing.
picking it up or processing it, they sell it?
oh yeah, they get money. In fact, the town of East Long Meadow's getting some money for the program.
We also
Okay,
get
so it's a third party
$1 a
that's-
ton, I believe.
So it's essentially a third recycling stream. If
Yeah.
you have mixed glass, plastic, and then cardboard, newspaper, and then textiles would be a third
Right,
recycling.
the great thing about this program is, first of all, they've been the guinea pigs for it in Western Mass. They've done it first, but it's cost the town nothing.
Well, that was my
It costs
next
the
question,
town
is how much
nothing.
did it cost the town? It cost you a couple $1,000 for printing and
No.
distribution?
No,
They do it.
They do everything. They print all the flyers, they mail them all to the
They
residents.
being,
The Simple Recycling, the company. They.
Too good to be true.
If a resident got missed, for example, they have a phone number on the flyer to call. If a resident wants more bags, they'll mail them more bags or drop them off.
Now, is there any community in Massachusetts that does recycle textiles? Like they have a bin
Well,
We do.
we do.
for textiles?
We do.
Great
Oh,
question.
I just do paper and plastic. I didn't know.
Well, not at the curb.
At the center.
Oh, you have to take it down to the recycle
Right.
center.
So
not
there's
at the curb.
Salvation Army, there's churches, there's
yeah, I know
Goodwill,
there's-
you know.
yeah.
That is our other source, but the curbside is obviously more convenient.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's had a bit better effect.
Yeah, because it
We're
sounds
looking
like
at
that
this,
would
and we're
be,
probably going to be implementing it in the fall or something.
yeah.
Same program.
And
Well, I know my dad, when he was growing up, he said the horse and wagon would come through with the rag man,
Right.
collecting rags from all the houses. And we're going back to that. That's good.
Rich?
Yeah, national news-wise, we're starting to hear of a lot of communities that are stopping recycling. Is there anything happening in New England? Are we getting any negative press? They
Well,
say the
because-
market's dried up.
I should have brought it, and I was going to bring it in. Our DP, Massachusetts DP, my former boss, just wrote a great byline for the insert we're going to put in the Republican that's going to come out on April 19th, good editorial that she's done on this issue. We've heard all these horrible titles of articles and how bad everything is, but they're not reporting the flip side of that. And so the good news is China still needs our stuff. So what the Chinese paper people are doing is they're coming to the United States and opening mills in the United States. And mills that have closed are reopening in the United States. So the market is adjusting and growing domestically, which is better in the long run for all of us. So it took a dip, but it's coming back up.
So it is growing back in.
It's coming back up, that's right.
Okay.
In 12 months to 18 months, they expect to see a big swing in the markets.
Liz, what kind of response did you receive from residents regarding the 35-gallon, imposition of or enforcement of the rules?
Well, I would say the majority, they all completely understood that it was, a town rule for a long time, and they just kind of like, oh, I forgot, or I didn't know. A couple obviously have some issues with it, and you just try to deal with it as best as you can.
And the people who had the 55-gallon or 70-gallon barrels, you just said, we're not going to take it until you get yourself a 35-gallon barrel?
Yes.
I mean, the thing to remember is they've had this program since 2005.
Oh, so
we've had it since 2006. We got one in a year after them. And I was looking back at the numbers. We've reduced our trash from that baseline year to last year, which is my most recent 12-month number, over 17,000 tons, saved over $1.3 million in trash disposal just by saying 35-gallon. That's not including the bag revenue or the recycling revenue. That's just the trash, the savings from disposal of trash.
So East Long Meadow uses Allied haulers. We use Waste Management haulers now. We kind of separated the
But we're
last.
talking about getting back together.
And that's fine. The question I have, I guess, is, didn't we at one point try to do identify or count how many barrels were over 35 gallons in town?
Yes.
Get a sense of the percentage? And do you have?
I put the information in my town manager's report.
Okay.
Which I can jump in on that if you want.
Why don't, just so we can get it, because Liz, if I'm reading your numbers correctly, I mean, you had a considerable number of people who were over the 35
Right.
gallon when you started.
Right.
And I think we're not that far from her number.
So she did a sample, right? You
Right.
just sampled the community, whereas
60 houses.
so we decided that we would do the whole community. For a relatively modest amount of money, we retained Waste Management to go twice to catch 2 different snapshots of the community, and got a lot of data out of that. Some of the data, we got 7,500 entries, but really it should have been 11,000 entries. So somewhere along the line, either people didn't put, maybe someone was away, didn't put the trash out a given week, or there was a couple of glitches in the data. But we did get projecting out to the, projecting out town-wide, 2,150 homes have 35 gallons or smaller. 1,364 homes use a 45-gallon barrel, and 234 homes have 65 or larger. So that means 42% are using larger than 35 gallons, so that's a significant number.
I have to say, because those numbers are very fuzzy, since they don't add up to the 11,000, that clearly it's more than what I've projected.
Right.
Closer to what you projected, but somewhere in the middle of what those numbers show, because they don't, you can't add them up and come up with 55.
Well, I think even if we wanted to look at the data, it's really, if we wanted to look at the data and just look only at the ones where there are 2 data points for each home, then you could I think the numbers are going to end up being consistent.
Is that what you did? You looked at
We haven't yet, but I mean, we could certainly look at it.
No, because we don't, it's not really firm data, I think.
But I think
it gives an idea we have a problem.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Right. So I think the order of magnitude is there. We also talked about how many blue bags. We also collected information about how many blue bags are put out, or we call them snow cones when people put an extra bag of trash on the top. One of the things about recycling, to build on Arlene's point, is a lot of communities that are getting away from recycling have single stream recycling, where everything goes into a giant bin, and then someone has to, because I read the same article, and when a processing facility has to separate all that stuff before it can be either used domestically or shipped overseas, that adds cost. Whereas for us, ours goes to the MRF, and it's already separated. So we've always done well with our recycling program and gotten rewards from the MRF when other communities have not. And I think we recycle more than any town around us.
Recycle a lot.
Yeah. So we started doing the data collection for us, and we did an enforcement a year ago, where we started enforcing the 96-gallon toters, where we weren't going to collect the 96-gallon toters anymore. And we received quite a bit of negative feedback from the people who were using the 96-gallon toters. People don't really take too kindly to saying we're not going to pick up your trash anymore. So, I think what we're trying to do is really building on the work that Liz did in East Long Meadow on kind of cultivating our information, really making the case to Long Meadow residents that there's an economic gain for everyone who participates in the solid waste recycling program and the town generally, because as the board knows, most of this is underwritten by property taxes instead of trash fees. So I think there's a strong economic case to be made that stricter enforcement is needed. One of the things that we've talked about is perhaps doing a standard issue barrel for everyone. Arlene has done some good work in terms of researching types of barrels and cost to issue a standardized barrel. There are grants that we've applied for grants to offset that cost. So we're looking at it, really taking the experience from East Long Meadow and seeing what our options are. But like I said, I think when you project, sorry Richard, but when you project out the cost, and this is in here, when you project out the cost, the numbers are right. It's 40,000 plus each year, and I think with the way right now that's at our $75 per ton disposal rate. We know that's going up. So the 40,000 is, and counting.
If you take the 18% that they reduced and extrapolate to us, it's about a $46,000
Yeah.
difference if we were to go to a uniform barrel.
Right.
Yeah, where did the 35-gallon figure come from?
Years ago, the state did a lot of research and tried to find out what was the breaking point in terms of what people would accept, what would be, this is a morphed program. They went to different tiers of best practice programs, and they say the best practice is everybody pays for a bag and puts their trash in the bag. That's the Cadillac program. The next one is the modified program, we call it, where the taxes pay for 35 gallons, and then the excess trash is paid for.
Where did the 35 figure come from?
Mass DEP came up with it by doing
Okay,
research
so
around the state.
it was dreamed up.
And drawing a line and saying, we think this is the level that is fair and reasonable, and so we'll support financially and try to incentivize that program.
Right,
So
I
that's
was
how we
wondering about
got
the
in.
fair and reasonable. I know the last time you bought a TV from Costco, but it'll fill 2 trash cans of styrofoam alone. And
Right.
that's certainly not household, it's just,
Sure, that's why we have a special place called the recycling center where you can bring that kind
You
of
can
material.
take the styrofoam down there?
Sure, you can take it down, you can pay for it if you have a lot, but if you don't have a lot.
Pay for it. I can
we
also
have-
stuff it in another bag
But it's
outside.
not-
I'm just saying the practicalities of, you buy a TV.
You can bring it to Gold Circuit Recycling in
Recycle.
Palmer, and they take it for free.
But
I'll
in
drive
Long-
all the way to Palmer, that'd be a good move,
But
too.
in Long Meadow, really, to bring
Brimfield.
styrofoam to the recycling center would not cost you very much money.
But you still have an extra charge.
Minimal for styrofoam. It's light. We don't care about that, light. We
Okay.
care about heavy.
Okay.
But just to say, we've taken it a step further. We've actually received a grant
All right.
for $82,000 toward the purchase of barrels. We've been advised by DEP that that amount is going to double that we could get if we reject this grant that we've just got and reapply beginning now,
Today.
anytime, and that will go to double that amount. So we'll get $30 per household per barrel. That will cost us $40 to purchase by the research we've done.
Right, so we're going to spend $50,000 on barrels. That's fine.
59,000 on barrels
Barrels.
for a return of 46 in the first year. The state's funding the rest. That's by the barrel, they'll deliver it, they'll assemble it, do the whole 9
On the other
yards.
hand, East Long Meadow spent zero to get this $40,000.
But they spend a lot of person power
Right,
Oh,
to do
and
it.
a salary.
or,
Yeah, I have one comment here, Erwin Purse, I'm also on the recycling commission. East Long Meadow had a significant advantage over us if Long Meadow did this program, in that they have a paid recycling coordinator, a very committed person in Lisbon, who coordinated the program, monitored it. As she mentioned, she went around and helped tag some of the households that had barrels that was too large, and that's a lot of work. We don't have someone to do that. I know in taking some of the calls when we did the program with 96-gallon barrels, DPW was overwhelmed with phone calls, and it's a lot of stress on them. Liz did a lot of that work for East Long Meadow. So we do, though, have grant money that can cover the cost of a temporary person that would help out with some of that.
And in addition, a uniform barrel is she's done a lot of work, but she's going to have to continue to do a lot of work, where a uniform barrel makes it very clear. There's no, this barrel is different than that barrel. It's the hauler knows that's the barrel. It's the green barrel or the blue barrel or whatever color barrel with the lid on it that we want to get. And it's much easier to enforce it, just, real quick and easy. And everybody's going to know, this is the barrel.
right, I hear you. I guess my concern is we're spending $50,000. Number two is we're not rewarding the people who are already abiding by the 32-gallon rules and literally accommodating the percentage of the people who are just saying, well, I've got a 70-gallon or 90-gallon or whatever it is, toter kind of thing.
They're
as
not
opposed to-
punished, they're going to get a free barrel.
Right, and what we ought to do is say to them, here's the rules, here's the bylaw, here's the requirements, let's try that first and see what happens, and if we don't pick up their trash 2 or 3 times in a row, they're gonna find out that they need to go invest the $20 or $25 at Rocky's or some other hardware store to get themselves a barrel, or Home Depot.
The other real benefit of a uniform program is that, I mean, it's a lot of work for the hauler to have to do what they're doing. They don't like that. They push back, they get very unhappy, they're going to charge you more money if they think you have to do that, and it's a lot of work for the staff. So you can nickel and dime it, or you can take advantage of a very, very generous grant to get you right to where you might want to be.
And that's fine. I guess my only response is going to be, we got to figure out how to pay the $50,000 difference. And if we're going to say, let's take it out of the savings, that's fine. Let's
1 year saving.
That's fine. Then we actually finance it out of the first year's savings, as opposed to, generally, we go out and we say everybody's taxes are going to go up to pay for these barrels, or your trash fee, we're going to impose a significant trash fee. And Long Meadow's always had the luxury, I guess, of not having a trash fee, and I'm trying to keep from imposing a trash fee in the town of Long Meadow if we don't have to, if we can.
I personally don't see how you have to with these numbers, but that's up to you.
And that's fine.
I'm all for that. I think that's
and that's fine, but I just hear, when I hear we got to come up with money, it's certainly not coming out of general revenue, I wouldn't think, and I'd hate to see us, if we can come up with a system that doesn't impose a trash fee that pulls this off, that's fine.
There really is kind of one now, You have an extra bag.
Yeah, and I think,
but that's for people who are seeding the.
Right.
I usually
and I think
pick
one
up my trash can, if it feels like it's over 50 pounds, I pull stuff out and I put it in a blue bag. It's not that difficult.
Take
Right,
it
and-
over and put it at Tom's house.
the barrel, one of the things East Long Meadow experienced was an uptick in their pay-as-you-throw bags sales as well, and we have some projections in my memo as well, and so that's not even included in the $40,000 to $46,000 curbside reduction that is a direct savings at the disposal site.
Nor is the increase in recycling revenue, which we'll be getting for at least another year.
Tom, you had a question, then I just.
Well, I guess part of it is if the 35-gallon thing is based on a family of 4 or something like that, how relevant is that to Long Meadow? I mean, I don't know what the distribution of families are in this town. I do know sociologists, when they look at family size, there's two ends of the spectrum that have large families, and Long Meadow would be on one end of that spectrum. So there might be more larger families, but as we know, over time, most of those children do move out of the town, and we have 2 people who may have a big garbage can and may just have one little bag in there.
Well, the whole idea of this sort of program is that those who are conscientious and recycle all that they can. You have a 4-person household.
I have a 4-person houses, and I don't know if I'm doing it wrong or not, but we have a 35-gallon barrel, and sidebar, the reason why I have a 35-gallon barrel is because it came with my house before I was aware of what the rule was, and I think that's very common in Long Meadow, and that's why a standard barrel makes it so as homes turn over and new residents come in, you don't have somebody going out and buying the 45-gallon, the gray with the black top that are ubiquitous right now, the 45-gallon.
48.
It's the Home Depot one.
Yeah, and so I can't remember the last time I purchased a blue bag. I don't even have any in the house. We recycle, and so I can only speak for my own family. I have 2 teenagers. I can only speak for my family experience, but it works for us. But I just think we are all the 60% of people that are using 35 or smaller through our property taxes are subsidizing the 40% who do not comply with the program, and so like I said, I think the most straightforward, fairest way that would minimize impact on the community would be the standard barrel. And the other thing is, there is the potential for we have split body trucks, so the driver has to get out. The driver has to get out to do the recycling and the trash, but if he's able to put the trash onto an arm or onto the lift on the side, grab the recycling, then you may even be able to see it. And I think our hauler, Waste Management, has said that they would like to see a standard, they'd like to see a standard barrel for both, but at least one would help in that regard. So Mark, I hear you on that, but I just think that the impact on the community and the amount of time and energy we would spend having to have that conversation with people, but in staff time, would make $50,000 look like nothing.
So the next question is, how soon can we do this? I mean, you
If it's
said
56,000, we can start, 59,000, we can start planning it tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's the issue, is there's not 59,000 hanging around in the budget right now. So it's something we'd have to come up with a system of getting it out of the I don't know, do we have anything in that, in our recycling?
There's some, but I think it's like $20,000 or $30,000.
You mean grant money?
No, the excess in the enterprise fund.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's the question, is that it'd be a shame to wait for the next fiscal year, and it's not even in the next fiscal year's budget.
The next round of grant is going to double?
The next
But you can apply for the next round of grants April 1st, right, or April 5th?
It opened today.
Right.
Okay.
We will get well, I'm not saying to do it. They told me that if we were to apply before June, we apply in May, and they would award it, they would tell us if we were going to get it or not, so you could spend the money after July 1st toward this program.
I mean, I'd love to...
But that doesn't give you the 59,000.
I'd love to ask that we come up with
That gives you the
a
165.
financing plan to pull this off, but in parallel, and I guess, Erwin, this is where we turn to the Recycling Commission, and I think you're still the chair, is come up with an implementation plan.
Well, we would...
Because it's not just the buying the barrels, but it's the communication, it's all the things that Liz went through in East Long Meadow
Right, well,
with communications.
Took her
plans.
4 months to do this
Well, now you
beautiful
can
thing.
put it on a Xerox machine and...
No, we're plagiarizing.
Right.
We have it
on that.
in the hands of a graphic artist. This will be done by Long Meadow Days, for Long Meadow.
Yeah, we are working with the recycling committee on
Is this
it.
something that we want to come back here and say, with a start date target, maybe it's July 1st, I don't know what it is, but come back to the select board with a start date target that says, look, we've now got, putting this in plan, and here's where we're going to, and start with the communication, so we tell everybody it kicks in on whenever the date is.
Well, I think, if we hear consensus that the board is supportive of transitioning towards this new system, then we will come up with a finance, we'll apply for the grant, depending on the outcome of the grant application, we would then,
Well, we're going to apply for the grant.
right, it would, depending on the outcome of the application.
It will be positive,
Okay.
a no-brainer.
So, then we come up with the financing implementation plan and then start doing the marketing and the outreach. I mean, I think we want to have minimally 60 days or 90 days where we're putting things out, maybe an insert in the, September water bill?
Early September?
Yeah, there's an early September water bill. We may do, look at different strategies for marketing, getting the word out, an all call to the town saying, by the way, here's what we're doing, like, different things like that. I mean, it's more quite honestly, it's more the political will to do it, because people are going to get mad. And
That's right.
a lot, and I know I can't speak for East Long Meadow, I can tell you in our town, a lot of people are going to get mad. And
They're going to have to get over it, Stephen. I mean, let them call the select board, let them call, I understand that, but the fact is, it's a benefit to the whole town, it's the cost of the...
Don't call the select board.
First of all,
Call Richard Foster.
Call the recycling people.
That's fine.
The question is, does the select board have the will to, the desire to implement this uniform plan with a uniform barrel?
Well, we
Or
were
are just going to let it be the Wild West?
Just as long as I never hear any complaints about immigration, because people who have large families are going to get hit with this harder than people who have small families. And so that means people are going to have to move here to take care of things.
No, I think the important thing is the state, the reason the state is, I think it's important for you to understand, the reason the state is doubling the grant money is because they feel this program is a very valuable program for the state. It's a DEP masterpiece. I mean, they love this program, and so they want to encourage and incentivize communities to stick with it. And so that's why they're giving more money for the program. So it's not a new program at all. It is a program we've had since 2006. It's just gotten a little bit away from its core value of the barrel being the same size. It's had creep. And so by doing this uniform barrel, it's just a natural opportunity to keep it.
And people can use their 45, 65 gallon toters for recycling.
Right.
Or yard waste or whatever they want.
We've had the 35-gallon barrel limit for
2005,
2005. So people who are upset that they're not using their huge barrel, you just say, well, guess what? You've been out in violation. You've been lucky.
And in terms of the big family, I love that question. And I always say to people when they complain about that, does it cost you more for shoes if you've got 6 kids? And yes, it's going to cost you more for trash as well. I mean, that's a decision people make, and we're giving every resident 35 gallons, no more than 40 pounds, a lot of trash is in 40 pounds. And I will bet you I can go through anybody's barrel and help them reduce their waste by 10%.
There's a hardship program for
That's
blue
right.
bags too.
Thank you, Steve.
But
Exactly.
that's not fair what you said. It's not 45 pounds. It's volume. Like I say, you
But
can
that's-
stuff a can with styrofoam only. And
Well,
I
but
know
you-
you can take the recycling center, but
No,
not
but-
everybody has the time to run back. Let me finish, please.
No, you're right.
Okay,
You're
so
right.
it's just, get away from this poundage. I wish it was poundage, but it's volume.
But you can also, many people don't realize you can break that styrofoam and get much more space.
I took it to a saw. I put it in little chunks.
Well,
I tried to stuff my can.
year?
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So
I'll
I
call
guess
you guys
that's what I'm
next
trying to
time.
do, is get a consensus from the select board of whether we want to have, we're going to apply for the grant anyway and move forward with this
My arm's
plan.
been twisted to the point, and I guess I would say that I do agree, it makes sense that we would reduce our flow. People probably would put more in their recycling, which, there's a lot of stuff that people may be negligent in putting in that. I also think it would be good if we could get people to, put their textiles in recyclable, because that is something we've been missing. I would even, I'd even consider we should have maybe a recycling bin for those, because I know
We
there are a
do.
lot of folks who
At the
have.
recycling center.
Well, I mean, besides taking it down somewhere, but I
well,
mean,
we'd like to adopt the program, the curbside program.
so they would do curbside, that would be great. And then, for people who do feel like this transition is going to be difficult for them, I think getting free barrels
Well, you're
is a
close to
great
action.
incentive. And if we, even for the
Yeah, yeah.
first few months, if we gave out free blue bags at Town Hall, I think that would,
Consensus.
very few people would come for them, but it might just sort of let people calm down.
2005.
All right, so we're going around in circles here, so you're right.
Can I just say something
Go ahead,
else?
Liz.
So just remember that trash costs will be going up, so you'll be saving more money. And landfills are closing, and so our hauler told us that they're going to be starting to ship our trash down to the south on trains. So that will cost even more. It's good for the environment, and there'll be less trucks going to do dump runs
Could ship it
within the
down
day.
south, huh?
Well, I guess thank you, Liz, very much, and thanks, Arlene, I appreciate it. I guess I'll close this out for behalf of the select board, just saying, with Tom's exception, it sounds like his arm's been twisted. I think there's a consensus to come back to the select board with a more formal proposal for this, and my own input is that, along with some way of paying for it.
Well, we could certainly, Stephen has suggested, we wait until November, or whenever your special town meeting is, to go and ask for money, then we could do it in the spring. But that's as soon as, unless you're willing to
Well, if there's
borrow with anticipation that you're going to get the money back.
If there's a better way to do
If there's
it.
year-end funds or something, I mean, we can look at a number of different ways. I mean, we can look at the price of the blue bags, maybe just the price of the blue bags as we start this out, that'll generate more revenue to offset the cost. We have some other grant funds, it's a lot of money, but it's not.
It's really not
It's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of the town operation.
Right, but it's not a lot of money, but if you don't have it, it becomes prohibitive.
Right.
So all I'm asking for is let's come up with a plan, and let's come up with a financing system for it, and then come back here and let us make a definitive decision.
Well, if we apply for and get the grant, which I know we will, get it if we apply for it. Why do you smile? I know it. You have, I think, a year, is it a year or 18 months to accept it, Mario? I don't remember.
I'm not sure.
It's at least a year to accept the grant, implement the grant after you get the funds. So it would be silly not to apply for it now and have that time. So I would think at the latest, if we came to the special town meeting, we could certainly get this kind of money
Yeah.
at that late date, and then do it in the spring. I wouldn't want to do it in the wintertime. But
Right.
the plan is, we're not reinventing the wheel. Many towns have passed out uniform barrels, and so there's a lot of information to be had to do it. So we'd be happy to come back to you with a plan. When do you want it?
As soon as it's available, as soon as the plan's available. I just, my own opinion is that, but between now and then, I think it's a shame that we're not enforcing the rules we have. And I understand that people, it's annoying, they're gonna call the DPW, whether it's 20% or 50% of the people who are in excess of 35 gallons now, they need to understand they're getting away with something. And it's costing the town money.
So just one last comment, I don't want to belabor the point. We had a lot of discussion about that internally, about how to handle that. And my position mostly was, let's collect the data, do some analysis, and quantify the issue, so we can better get a handle on what is this actually costing us. In the process of all this, we started exploring the standardized barrel. And to enforce the rules and tell someone with a 45-gallon barrel now to go out and buy a 35-gallon barrel when we were really pretty far down the path of a standard issue barrel wasn't really fair to that person either. So rather than send them to the hardware store for a new barrel and then 6 months from now we drop off a town issue barrel, didn't make a lot of sense either. So that's one of the reasons we said we were going to kind of defer on that and focus on this strategy instead.
I hear you, Stephen. I think there's nothing wrong with telling people you're costing the town money, and oh, by the way, you better start learning to live with 35 gallons of trash, because pretty quickly you're going to have just a 35-gallon barrel.
Well, the haulers don't take them if they're too heavy. They just leave them.
Well, if they're too heavy, but not
Not
if they're
if
too
they're
big.
Not that too big.
They still do.
Right.
They're
Has
too big.
anybody said that the things are full, or are we just talking the container? I mean, I don't know what mine is, but I have one bag in the bottom of it, usually, unless I have a TV that I chew up.
We can come look.
But I
at it.
mean,
We can tell you
seriously,
the
when they
size.
were doing this audit, were we talking about the container, or were we talking about the containers that were full?
The
The
container.
bylaw talks about the size of the container, not the volume of trash. The bylaw specifies the size of the container, not the volume of trash.
I just asked.
And so, but when you look at East Long Meadow's results at the disposal site, so tonnage results at the disposal site, that's where you know the kind of proof is in the pudding on what they've done. So that's where we don't go around, lift the lid and see what's in there. We can look at their 3 months of data since they started heavily enforcing it and say, there's a there.
Well, I would think your complaint, I understand what you're saying, but it's errorless as far as the savings, so unless you have quantifiable weights. That's what we're talking about.
But that's
is the
what she,
reduction.
that's what she
Right,
gave
you
us.
did it over there.
Right.
but
The
that's
fact
what they're
that they
really
kind of
talking
line up within the same range, I think affirms what our assumptions about the data are. Because we're exact same size town,
Maybe a
essentially.
little bigger,
Yeah.
but similar. Similar enough, I think, to extrapolate.
Yeah.
I think the message is, the time is not wasted if you agree with the plan and the program, and we start talking about that. So people are educated that the more waste they reduce now, even though the barrel might be too big, that's good for the town. And if we start the textile program, that's good for the town. And if they clean up their recycling, no plastic bags in the recycling, that's good for the town. I mean, all these messages from you guys, and then from being supported by the Recycling Commission, is going to help the program whenever it gets implemented. So I don't think it's time wasted.
Okay. All right, thank you again. Thanks very much. Thank you, Liz. Really appreciate it. So the next item on our agenda is discussion about the William Street raised crosswalk. This has come up multiple times here. Mario sent us an email today, or somebody sent us an email.
I did pass it in, a version on Friday, and I think it might have been updated again today, so.
The discussion is on the William Street raised crosswalk. We've had, I will say that that's the issue that I get spoken about the most from town residents. And your Facebook or Twitter pages notwithstanding, I think that if we counted heads, we'd find far more people saying it doesn't belong on William Street, but I guess I'm looking for other, and you've heard it here from the select board over the last 2 or 3 months about this thing, so.
I would just say that, so I got that email that had all these positive comments. The question is, was that kind of filtered, because...
I guess the approach was, we wanted to give you 3 options. Option 1 was do nothing. And to support that, there are some people that are happy about the installation. Number 2 is to soften it. And I believe that is going to be, have the incline and the decline be extended so it's more gradual as opposed to such a big hump. And number 3 is to remove it completely. So there's funds outlined in what was given to you in your packet to kind of help guide the conversation on what the cost would be if we decide one of those.
But can I go back for a second?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
How far back?
back to the beginning of this. I mean, I think to start with the negative comments versus why does it exist there to begin with, it's just, I know you guys know all this, but maybe just to frame the conversation for others. We adopted a complete streets bylaw that said we had to take into consideration all modes of transportation, pedestrian, cyclists, things like that, as we plan our roadway projects. We applied for, we did VHB came in and analyzed many, if not all, many of our transportation network, or much of our transportation network, identified certain pedestrian crossings that were of greater need, and the William Street, and then took objective criteria, ranked all the potential projects. This intersection, this project at this intersection was number one, and as Susie Altman noted, and you all know this, a pedestrian was killed there after that complete streets study was already underway, and this was emerging as a top location because of speed and other factors. So this was already on our radar screen as a problem, and then there was a pedestrian fatality there. And that plan was presented to the board. We then applied for a grant from the Complete Streets program from Mass DOT to do two projects, that's both on William Street, the two raised crosswalks. And at the time they were supported. So in framing this discussion, it was the right place for it on paper, and I think everyone thought that at the time. How the reasons why it hasn't worked the way we thought or hoped it would in terms of traffic calming and better driver behavior, it's still somewhat of a mystery to me, but it obviously hasn't. But I just think, had we gotten all that data and all that information that said this is the top spot, and decided, you know what, nah, we're not going to put it there, even after the fatality, I think that would have looked even worse. So it was designed in accordance with the specs, it was built according to the specs, it was in the location that all the information suggested should be. So, like I said, it's a mystery to me how it isn't working as well as it should, but it wasn't like a dartboard approach to putting it there. And I just want to remind the board that a lot of time and energy and study went into this, and it ended up there. And I think I've gotten a lot of negative feedback about it as well, but I just wanted, the point of the Facebook posts was to show that there is another side of the story, that there are plenty of people who do support it and think it's a good thing. As we evaluate it, and just to say, is it the right thing for our town and location? I asked Mario to come up with a few different options, and I've asked him to get an answer to a question that we don't have yet, which is, if we take it out, do we have to pay the money back? As you may know, when you get a grant from the Commonwealth, there are certain terms and conditions that are pretty standard, and one of them is if you fail to perform or stop doing what you said you were going to do, you have to pay us back. So we want to lay out some options. We want to get that information out there. If we decide at the end of the day that it's just better to remove it or soften or do something, I think that's fine. I'm kind of at the point where, like I said, I'm at a loss as to know what we could do differently, but I just want to make sure that before we make a decision, we have all the information that we need to make an informed one.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Bill?
I would just say, I don't know, I wouldn't want to see it taken out. There was a reason for putting it there. And does it seem like you're getting more positive comments than negative? I mean, I get like 5 positive for every negative.
I haven't had that experience. The calls at DPW have tailed off over the last couple months. I hear that you guys are getting them now, and maybe that's just because they don't feel like they're going anywhere when they call us. But I guess the experience has been 60-40 negative over positive.
So I guess my comments have really centered around what was the reason we did this. We did it to make the crosswalk safe,
right?
And not to slow traffic, but to make the crosswalk safe. Now, there's an implication that if you slow traffic, it ought to make the crosswalk safer. But it seems to me there are other ways to make the crosswalk safer. And what we did is we just took the approach of we're going to put in a speed bump on, one could argue one of the 3 or 4 major roads in the town of Longmeadow. There's Route 5, there's probably Laurel Street, and there's maybe Williams and Bliss. I mean, those are the main roads in town. I can understand it in the residential neighborhoods and stuff, but to make that crosswalk safe, it seems to me that we didn't look to some of the other ways of making all of our crosswalks safe. Whether they're better flashing lights, better system of pushing it and literally stopping the traffic when somebody wants to...
Signal would work.
When somebody wants to cross there. I mean, Bay Path put that up on Route 5. They paid for it, and we authorized it. If you recall, right in front, between their library and the college, right?
That's just flashing beacons, if I'm not mistaken.
No, if you push the button, it stops you.
It's flashing beacons.
It's just flashing?
There's no red, red, yellow, green.
But, I mean, if it works, if it works there, and they didn't raise the crosswalk, they didn't even ask to raise the crosswalk. Maybe they didn't consider raising a crosswalk there, I don't know. But that's why I'm thinking that let's make the crosswalk safe. I'm not arguing against doing that, but not at the, I mean, it's no secret, our ambulance bottomed out over that thing and caused some damage in the ambulance. So it's just too major a road for my purpose for having a speed bump like that. And I know one of your alternatives is to level up. If you're going to do that, it's just going to be like a rise and a drop, and it's not going to serve the purpose of slowing cars down. And you still don't have the flashing crosswalk system. So, I mean, my sense is let's remove it and put in a true crossing signal for people to cross there. That's my personal opinion.
That's already there.
Yeah, I don't want to split hairs with you. There is, in addition to the raised crosswalk, flashing beacon. So a pedestrian hits a button, the lights start flashing, and everybody's supposed to take notice and stop. That's there too.
Yeah. So, and I mean, I've heard from Bay Path that even with that, people don't heed the flashing beacons and go blasting through it. So Bay Path will tell you that they paid the money to do that. They upgraded the one they had. In fact, they gave us their old ones that we put over, I think, over by Wolf Swamp School. And honestly, over my time here, we've added a lot of these types of things of crossings, of pedestrian upgrades, and like our crossing guards will tell you that even with the upgrades, it's treacherous out there for pedestrians. Part of the anecdotal evidence that drove a lot of this decision making was we do have a crossing guard there, and she's almost been hit a number of times, and so we knew we had a safety concern at this location. We also put another one of these in out in front of Town Hall at the intersection of Williams and Longmeadow Street east of the Green. I mean, universally revered as a pedestrian safety upgrade. I mean, everybody loves that. It works. There's no scars on either side of it. We don't have it soaked in signage and flashing speed limit signage and all this other stuff that we have out here. I think what's different, I think maybe for some cars you're approaching a stop. It's a little more tightly defined roadway and area with the buildings. And I think the approaches from both directions to the raised crosswalk are different in that you're kind of coming up to it, whereas out here it's kind of at a lower at a low spot in the road that existed as a low spot in the road before we did the work
for drainage.
For drainage purposes, right? Because there's an inlet right on the west side of the raised crosswalk, which means that side of it has to be lower than the rest of it for drainage. I think in design, I don't want to speak for the town engineer, but in design, redoing all that drainage adds a significant amount of money to the cost of the project. So I think the thought was it'll work without having to do that.
Right.
So like I said, I think the concept of the raised crosswalk has been proven as effective by the other one, by the one out in front of Town Hall. We've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how can we make this one better, and these are the options that we're laying out.
Yeah. Did you want to say something?
Yeah. I agree with you. It's not normal to have gouge marks going and coming on that. I use that quite a bit. I can personally tell you, for me as a pedestrian or as a vehicle operator, it's not as safe as it was. because I never know now whether the traffic's going to slow down or whether they're going to barrel through. And that the indecision is on everybody's part, and I've seen at times in rush hour where it's deadlock. It's amazing what it's done to that area, and I'm surprised we haven't had accidents down there, seriously. Because you never know when one does not paying attention and they just come barreling right on through there.
I think that's a big issue.
It's not normal, in all of my years, it's not normal to have body parts from automobiles after a speed bump. Now, if you could take the speed limit down to 20, but I guess you cannot lower the speed limit there legally, can you?
You could. We can go to 25.
Okay. But I mean, it's at full 35 right now, and you can't hit that thing at 35.
No.
You can hit the one down in front of your place at 22, 23, okay. But you can't do this one at 23.
Yeah.
Because of the drainage you mentioned, they had to get the hump too quickly. So the rise and fall is much too quick on this one for vehicle comfort. But that's what I've witnessed down there, is that you just don't know what traffic's going to do anymore. I don't even like to go out that way because of the indecision on traffic. And I've also found out that some people turn more aggressive now because they think the traffic's going to stop, and they're pulling out in front of them. Watching just the flow, because I'm in and out of there 4 or 5 times a day normally, and I see the different traffic patterns at different times. I think the safety lights for the crossing is the improvement. The raised thing is a traffic control mechanism to slow traffic.
Right.
That's its only purpose. It's not a safety purpose for people walking across. It slows traffic down, AKA promotes safety. But in this case, they don't slow down. They're barreling at 35. The kids still have to have a crossing guard or use the flashing lights and be very aware there, because there's so much visual confusion with all the high school traffic and people blocking the lanes and everything else. See, I don't know if you've been up there during the times of the day when it's all hell's breaking loose. That's the only thing you can say. Morning and afternoons, it's crazy time up there. And it's because there's so many cars there. I agree with Mark. To me, it would be better to have it removed and leave all the safety things in place. It would seem safer to me. And I may be wrong. I'm not a traffic engineer. I've worked in traffic all of my life, but I'm certainly not a traffic engineer. I didn't design it. I proposed that if I went up and shot grade so it was going to show what you said, we had to get the hump too quick. Andy was talking about softening. There's no way you can soften it going towards town because you got a drain right there.
So
you
we
would
looked
have
at
to
that.
soften the other way.
We thought of maybe lowering it,
Yeah.
maybe an inch or two.
Yeah.
Keeping the ramps as they are. That way the drainage piece of it wouldn't have to be removed or relocated.
Right.
The additional piece that comes with that is you have to lower the sidewalk to meet ADA, so there's extra costs related to that. So I think this was the preferred option, is to actually extend the ramps, and that's the figure you have in your packet.
You could grind the curb, though, couldn't you?
It's the concrete, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could take a 2-inch grind off there.
We
so
could
I don't-
probably take an inch or
But you
so.
have to put in the tactile.
The tactile,
you
we
could
could
put the-
redo that.
Yeah, you could redo that.
I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm looking for guidance. I mean, I understand that this is a big issue in town. I frequent different locations, and when folks know that I'm the DPW director, ask me about it as well, and so.
I saw 3 vehicles today go airborne, and I would have thought by now you wouldn't see it anymore. It's amazing.
I was driving Friday and someone in front of me must have been looking at that phone because they were crawling along
Yeah.
and going east towards East Long Meadow, and then all of a sudden, somewhere around, Heather or something like that, they decided to pick up the pace and then go flying over the thing.
Right. Well, you don't see it either, Stephen.
It is going west to east. It's tougher because
Right.
you're up high,
Right.
and then you go down low. It's easier to see going west. It's
Right.
easier to see that way. But counterintuitively, there are more scars on the west side of the hump than there are on the east side of the hump. And like I said, we have put a bunch of signage up. We have put the speed flasher on.
Yeah.
We get letters and complaints people saying, "Well, I was only going 25 and I hit my head in the roof of the car." No chance. If you go over 25, you're not coming out of your seat. Now you're gonna know you hit. You're gonna know you went over it. But it's, and I've said this before. I know people don't like to hear it, but inattentive drivers going too fast are the reason that came out number one on the Complete Streets program. I mean, that goes back 2 or 3 years in that analysis. And so I think you're having fewer and fewer instances of that, but still an alarming number nevertheless.
Have you tried select enforcement on speed?
Yeah, they do enforcement over it. And the other part of this, the other aspect of this is Pioneer Valley Planning Commission is doing a study of the triangle area, around the shops. And that pedestrian way is even more treacherous in some ways than this one. And so I'm going to guess that in our design recommendations, another one of these is going to be a recommendation. And I think that would probably help. That would make this one seem more in context than it does now, because right now it's just kind of out there on its own. But I would say, I think we're looking at, we just got a grant from Safe Routes to School to do the sidewalk up along Grassy Gutter, or from Grassy, there's no sidewalk on this side, of Bliss Road, so connect the sidewalk network and then cross over to Blueberry School as a Safe Routes to School thing. Well, they're talking raised crosswalk for that as well.
That was project number 3 on this list.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah. Federal Highway's done a lot of studies on speed and the visual. And people don't speed down at headquarters because there's so many other obstacles. You tend to slow down there anyway, even when you come by.
Yeah.
Even if it didn't say police, you tend to slow down. You recognize there's a lot of vehicles, there's a lot of kid traffic and all. This one up here doesn't give you that same sense. You don't realize that you're entering a high pedestrian zone. Now, at this plaza, it will. Visually, you will know you're in a clustered area. And that's how they set speed limits across the country. They just watch what people do.
Right.
People know on that medium tactile scale, they will only travel what they feel it's safe speed limit to travel, even without the signs.
But I think the thing is, and you're right, one of the things that we've done is we've talked about when we've added the fog line now. We didn't used to do that. I said we have to add the fog lines, and we sometimes narrow the lane widths a little bit,
right?
Because that's one of the things that the federal government has said there's no slam dunk definitive data, but generally
works on the brain.
Yeah, because it looks like it's coming to a taper, so subconsciously you slow down. Again, I know people don't like it, and they don't like, and it catches you off guard if you don't pay attention to it being there. But if we're talking about how that area, and you're right, and again, that's why it was number one.
Yep.
That area specifically seems to facilitate speed. And we're saying now we want to take out the thing that has gotten at least some of the people to slow down. What direction are we going in? And that's where I think I want Amara to find maybe a middle ground between outright removal and take no action. I understand take no action. We need to do something about it. I completely get that.
I think that it just needs to be mellowed out a little bit. It looks like the cheapest option, other than not doing anything, right?
I'd have to look at the drainage piece of it. They're close. They're both, I think one was like 14,000 without the drainage. If we can make it work without having to replace that, that's the number. If we have to add the drainage, I think that was like another $5,000. So one was 20, one was 19. So it's.
My sense is I think that's fine to try that, but we're just putting good money after other money, and at some point we're going to end up saying that it's just not, then it's not working. And the reason it's not working is because the number of drivers through there who are not local drivers, which may be all the reasons to try to get them to slow down, but they're not slowing down. They're actually being more, there's, I don't know whether you put in rumble strips or you put in, whatever it is to otherwise get them to slow down, but the speed bump is causing more problems than saving. I'm there every morning from 7:30 or 7:45, and the number of families coming down Merriweather who let their kids out of the car and the kids then cross over that crosswalk. There's a lot of them, so it's an important crosswalk to have. But so I'm not debating whether or not we should have a crosswalk, but I don't want somebody who's crossing there to have a false sense of security that says, I'm okay, I can just cross the crosswalk because it's a raised crosswalk. The nature of drivers these days is they might be looking at their phone and not looking up, and I don't care whether you've got the right of way or not. Make sure the car's stopping or slowing down for you before you get into the crosswalk, because you can, as they say, you can be right, but you can be dead right, and you don't want to do that. So, to my mind, let's get in a crosswalk, let's make the thing work. You know, my vote is to pull the thing out of there and go back to the way it was.
So I'm going to disagree with the idea that it's caused more problems than it's resolved. I don't think empirically we could prove that, but I think we've tried to show you feedback that
Show me a problem that's resolved.
People slowing down. People slowing down. Right, and I think there are people driving too fast through there. And we haven't done a lot because the thing got done like right before winter time,
Right.
and so we haven't been out there doing aggressive radar and speed and things like that. But I think anecdotally, I mean, I would defer to you on this. I know you're through there quite a bit. I mean, the number of cars I see launch off the thing is going down, and as I tell people, kind of half kiddingly, I'm going to apologize for the first time you go over it, but not for any ones after that. I do want to find, before we take an action, I do think we need to answer the question. I mean, Mass DOT, we asked them the yes or no question, and they came back with questions of us. And I don't want to be in this, I don't want it to now turn into like a $100,000 issue because we have to pay back the money. So I think let's find that out first. If they say, you know, it didn't work and there's going to be no penalty, then okay, fine. Now we know what the options are.
I haven't said anything. I guess I would feel that if we could bring it down some way or widen it, would be great. And when we get additional raised crosswalks in that area, people will figure that out, that that's just a slow area. I think it'll be good for people in the community. We probably could use about 5 of them in that area without it. And people would get used to it, you know. But it's just getting people used to that first one. That's the hard part, because people are moving, so.
And before we drift off this point, I mean, I think we want, like I said, we received the Safe Routes to School grant. I know they're going to come out and suggest a raised crosswalk there. That was, like I said, that was the third one on the list.
That was proposed on the grant application.
And
was
then, like I said, I know that Pioneer Valley Planning Commission is going to, because this is now kind of the new standard.
Yeah.
Even on state highway, I mean, you know, Williams and Bliss and Laurel and Route 5, they're state roads. You know, they're not managed by the state?
They're not. They're local roads. They're all local roads.
But they fall under TIP, though, don't they?
They are part of the federal highway system, but they're not.
I think that's what he's referring to.
But they're not state roads. They're not Mass DOT roads.
Right.
Okay. I mean, but it's not like they're Meriwether Drive or Grassy Gully.
Part of Meriwether Drive, but one of the reasons why you really couldn't do it on Long Meadow Street is one of the reasons why it does not seemingly work as well on Williams there, is the width of the road.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, like I said, one of the things we're looking at around the triangle there.
Yeah.
Bliss at Blueberry Hill is pretty narrow, and so, you know, I mean, we have them out here in the driveway in the high school here too, and I mean,
that's normal. You expect them there.
Right.
You really, you know, until we lower the speed limits and do selective enforcement, I don't know how you can evaluate, because it hasn't proven to do anything except tear body parts off vehicles right now. I hate to be that way, but I mean, you look at the gouges. I mean, and I saw 3 of them today, and I thought the one was going to slow down. No, they didn't. Coffee cup in hand, away they went up over the top, you know.
Yeah. And like I said, I think we're making incremental improvements, but not fast enough.
We're getting rid of a lot of old junk cars.
Right. I mean, I expect oil to start, you know, like a spring will come up out of that
there's a lot of oil
scar
plants
marks
and hitting on the ground. Steve,
I can't figure it out, but we.
But so it's been what, 6 months now we've had it, and okay, it's winter time, and it's been 6 months. How much longer do we want to wait to say? I mean, at some point, you know, I'm willing to say we collectively made a mistake. It's not the right place or the right design, or blame it on the drainage, whatever it is. But say we got to do something differently there, and to just keep putting it off is just causing more trouble and more damage and more delaying the inevitable. And you know.
So to answer your question, how long?
Yeah.
Just, I feel strongly that we need to get an answer from SDOT about the grant.
And let's play that out. Okay, and when they come back and they say, well, if you take it out, you got to pay back the money. Then what do we say? Well, I guess we're not.
Then we would modify, then we would just do the softening. I think that would probably be
Either
allowed.
that or get their team in here to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or so, yeah, I mean, then we would tell them, it's not working, you tell us, Mass
You tell us
DOT,
why.
what we think we should do. But I mean, I just, or the board just
You could
decides.
even do that now,
Yeah, I was going to
Stephen.
say, why don't we do that now?
You could make a request and say, bring in your engineering
We've
team and
started
take a
that-
look at
we
it.
started that dialogue
They're
with
looking at
them.
it. They looked at our plans. They have some questions. We'll answer them.
Tell them to do a field review.
We'll work this through, but I think it's a valid point. I was hoping to leave today with some direction on where we're heading with this. And I know some of it has to wait until we get the answer from DOT, but there are other projects, and those raised crosswalks are part of them. And so eliminating them before we send the bids out would be good
This
information
is
to
your
have.
poster child, though.
Not mine.
No, I mean, it's a poster
But
child.
I think the
we're
poster
batting
child-
500 though.
If I would
Yeah,
pick
but I
one,
mean, consider where it's at, though. Just like I said, the visual thing. They'll be into the visual thing on the highway people. They will understand that your visual quality down at the community house, you slow down because
That's
you
the
can see
poster
all the
child.
traffic and people and things. It
And
makes
the
you
cars
slow
parked
down.
on the side of the road,
Yeah, you
there's all
just slow
kinds of stuff
down.
going on.
Yeah.
There, you don't slow down. There's no indication whatsoever one direction that hump is even there until you hit it. And it's too late. Yeah, I mean, you see the flashing lights, but we're so accustomed to seeing flashing lights. And you see a sign that says bump, you see signs say bump all over the
You
interstate.
don't even see the sign, even though it's sitting there pretty prominently. People
you know,
don't read it.
And it tells me my speed, and I say, yeah, I'm doing the speed limit, right?
It's the inattentive driving. We've said it several times through different people, and that's the sum of it. Is people just not paying attention.
Which is exactly why a raised sidewalk doesn't provide the
Safety.
added pedestrian safety, because
I
it's an
agree.
inattentive driver. And you can raise the sidewalk or not raise the crosswalk, and the inattentive driver, either way, is going to be going too quickly. So my argument is, why inconvenience all the attentive drivers through a raised crosswalk that's killing their cars and doing all kinds of other things, when it's not stopping?
I would lower the speed limit, though, period. They're going too fast through that zone.
And
It
Rick-
is a school zone.
And Rich, you're absolutely right. The point is, though, why are we still also we're not solving the problem. That's why my first thing here is, what are we trying to do? And it's create a safe crosswalk. And that didn't create a safe, if people are still going over it too quickly, then it didn't create the safe crosswalk. That's my only point.
Well, no,
So let's find a
but that's
better way
not-
to
I mean-
create a safe.
But Mark, that's not 100% correct either. Because if, I don't know how many vehicles are going through there per day. If we took that measurement now of speed in that zone, that was the same data point that fed the complete streets thing where it turned out number one, if we did that count now, I promise you speeds are lower.
Doesn't your radar unit capture speeds? Does it have a data download?
I don't know if that has a data on. I think
don't
that's just a
either.
display.
But you got your radar boards you could put in.
We could do that, and I think we've done some data collection since, I don't know, when Pioneer Valley collected their data, but so to say it solved the problem, I think in some ways it did mitigate the underlying problem we were trying to resolve. It created another one an unintended consequence at the same time, but that's different than saying it didn't solve the problem.
So what is the timetable?
So we're going to keep working with Mass DOT. I think if we have an update for the meeting on the 16th, we'll certainly provide that.
Why don't you just tell them you want an update, period? We did what they wanted us to do. We put in what they said.
But this is out of Boston. This is
And
another the
they
district.
haven't had
Doesn't the one north of here respond?
Springfield.
Yeah, no, the one north.
District 2.
Huh?
We started with
District
District 2. They kicked it over to Boston. And in fact, I think in their response was, you are the first person to ask us this question. So,
Oh, well.
We're the only ones that have this problem.
Well, give us a plaque and come down and look at it.
So,
But Steve, I just don't want to be in a situation where this is just dragging on and we're blaming Mass DOT, because it's an issue we can identify. It's something that we could address, and that's why I said, what are we going to do depending on their answer? I can't imagine where our answer is going to say, well, they said just because you got to pay the money back, we're going to live with something we believe is not right for the town or not right for that location. Now, if the select board in its wisdom thinks it's the right thing to do, then we'll just move on and leave it and just stop answering the phones when they ring. But Mass DOT is isn't the determinant factor here. They're a contributing factor.
No one's saying that, Mark. No one's saying that. And we said last fall that we were going to look at it, look at options, and we have been. And we're talking about tonight because you wanted it on the agenda, not because we were ready to give a comprehensive presentation on it.
Right.
Can we reduce the speed limit ourselves on that road?
No, I mean, they just changed the law. The Municipal Modernization Act said that you can do that.
I'd have to look.
Yeah, no, I think you can do it to 25.
Without going to Boston or anything else, or without District 2 or any of this stuff?
Yep.
Okay, well, what would be wrong in doing it tomorrow?
I mean, we talked about that internally. Sometimes
just put the speed
enforcement is an issue. I mean, maybe, like I said, I think it's 30 right after that. In fact, we finally took the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit sign out because it created kind of a false impression. It's 30 once you head into the shops.
Right.
So it should be 30 there, and if we want to extend the 35 mile now further west.
I can't even believe the shops are 30, Stevens.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Well, you guys know this. The speed limit is determined by the by the composition of the road.
Right.
You can go lower if you want, and that may be one of the outcomes of the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission study. I think the big thing, one of the reasons why Boston controlled speed limits as long as they did is because they didn't want kind of knee-jerk unilateral responses to things that weren't really borne out by engineering and enforcement systems. That has changed a little with the Municipal Modernization Act. I'm in favor of lowering the speed limit. I'm not arguing with you. I'm not arguing with you about doing it or not doing it. I'm just saying there's reasons why you think these things through and do a little bit of analysis of it. I mean, we've done a lot of projects. This is the first time I think we've had one in the last 5 years that has been like, wow, that really didn't work out at all. Like we thought it was
school
going to.
buses coming and going. You got so much activity at the school that they.
But then you're going to lower it while school is in session or something like that.
Yeah, lower it to 25. It should be 25 through there anyway. It never should have been 35.
I agree with you.
But you want to keep, I mean, do you want it 25 miles an hour on Saturdays and Sundays?
Absolutely. It's the same traffic, Mark. What's it going to hurt?
Well,
They're coming through the zone. They're coming down through the school zone. After they pass that heading into town, they can take back to 35 if they want.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, how the road is comprised, or the width of it, the build out.
Right.
That's what drives it. That's why the woman,
congested
the lady from Enfield who talks about Pondside is a good example.
Hmm?
Pondside, the composition of Pondside makes that a 40-mile-an-hour road. I mean, it's been a 40-mile-an-hour. I don't know how aggressively it's posted. Not many people go 40 down there.
They can't.
You can't. Too many potholes.
Right. That's our version of traffic calming down there.
It's a good deterrent.
But
There's a solution.
But
It's
under DOT
more
regulations,
Right.
that's what it is, and so that's, I mean, like I said, it's the speed limits are a derivative unless you did the study and went to Boston. I think we have more flexibility on that now, and we should be exploring that.
But
Again,
before
as a
you put the
prevalent.
speed pump in, speed was a problem.
Right.
Speed's still a problem. And we've never lowered the speed limit.
Well, we're gonna be talking about this another half hour. and I don't know if we've done it.
Pedestrian safety was the issue, and we approach it from a pedestrian safety standpoint.
And that's where we ought to continue our focus, in my opinion, on pedestrian safety. I mean, whether you're 25 miles an hour or 35 miles an hour, Richard.
But I think in 2 weeks from now, they should come back and give a good briefing to the board, though, on some of the discussion we've had, including getting with District 2 to get some more people down. Somebody in here.
The only thing I'll say is neither he nor I are going to be here
Right.
for that meeting.
You're going to get the B team for that
You
presentation.
weren't up until tonight.
I don't know if I'd say that. They may get the A team,
Yeah, well,
depending on how you look at it.
I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm just convinced that we need to do something, because the status quo, whether it's flattening it out or
I
removing
understand.
it or.
I'm looking for guidance.
We both agree with that statement. We both agree something needs to be done. We just want to make sure we don't create yet another unintended consequence by taking an action. That's all.
All right. Anybody have any other suggestions, comments? Okay, I don't know where we're headed, but Mario, how are we going to hear from the DEP, the DOT or whoever?
So we've been communicating through email.
Okay,
Like
so-
I said, we have some questions we need to answer.
And if we don't hear from them in a week or 10 days?
They've been pretty responsive.
Okay.
We started this mid last week, and we've been back and forth a few times, so.
So Andy can come in 2 weeks.
Oh, absolutely. Somebody will be here. I don't know that they'll have the history that Steve and I have, so.
You will? Oh, good. All right. Fine, we'll delay this still further, but meanwhile, we got to do something.
Further, but yet a very short extension.
Okay, we'll put it back on the agenda for 2 weeks to finalize it, because I think we do need to take some action. All right.
Okay.
Like,
Thank you. Paul, audit correction report.
Thank you. Audit correction report for the findings in the 2018 audit management letter. First finding dealt with IT controls regarding committees, written backups, passwords, and formal processes about reviewing software training. The IT director was here 4 weeks ago, gave you some information regarding security and cyber attacks and backup procedures, so on and so forth. I am chasing down the IT director to get more information regarding those other factors. Finding number 2 dealt with improve internal control at the Parks and Rec Department regarding checks and logs and summarization reports. All those were implemented back when the management letter first came out back in December of 2018, so those are all rectified. Number 3 was a recommendation to perform student activity fund audits according to the DESI guidelines. I know the superintendent of finance, Tom Mazza, for the schools has engaged Tom Scanlon and Associates to do the audit. They just haven't come up with an exact date in order to perform that audit, but that will be done, I'm assuming, fairly shortly. Number 4 dealt with GASB number 84 and 87, which does not take place until FY 20 and 21. We really have not done much on that information at this point in time. As folks know, I've been down 2 staff members, 2 out of the 3 staff members for a little while. So we've been basically keeping the normal operations up and running as opposed to doing some of this other side work. Number 4 deals with the fundraising activities and some oversight of the bank reconciliations. I will start with the bank reconciliations. Those have been put on hold again because of the vacancies. The fundraising activities, we have addressed part of the issue through conversations with FLOCA and the rental agreement, or lack of a rental agreement per se, on the gift shop. We will also be looking at other areas where the town is doing fundraising to make sure that we are in compliance with the statutes. And then I believe there are 2 from the prior year findings. One was the establishment of other finance accounts. It was an accounting issue dealing with other financing sources and issues. Those were taken care of back at the opening of the FY19 books, so those were actually taken care of. And then the last one deals with whether we should be operating as enterprise funds. Both, in essence, it becomes both the solid waste recycling enterprise fund and, to some degree, the stormwater enterprise fund, because they basically have the same scenario where the revenues collected through fees is hardly, it's 20 to 30% of the whole fee structure, and there's a large subsidy coming from the general fund. We did have a conversation about the fee structure in the stormwater, where we did raise the percentage that is covered by fees. We did not get to any discussion with regard to the solid waste recycling enterprise fund, and again, that should probably be had at some point in time.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Paul.
Yep.
I sent you an email. You had one job tonight and you didn't do it, so you wanted the CAFR?
No, well, I was waiting for the town manager's report, and I was going to jump in.
Oh, okay.
I got it.
All right.
Got you covered.
Thanks. All right. Does anybody have any questions about the audit correction report? Paul? No, thank you. Thanks, Paul. Paul, we're going to step back a little bit and finish on our agenda just before we get to our one-day, we have a town meeting and liquor license. Just go back to the town manager's report, Stephen. I'll give Paul a chance to do his thing.
What, announce our award? Oh. So I'll just, and I will let Paul announce it because he's the one who really has built that and sustained that over the past number of years. But just a quick note, we've talked about broadband in the community. I had read an article in the newspaper some time ago about the town of Southwick engaging in conversation with Westfield Gas and Electric. It's called Whip City Fiber. Fiber is their kind of offshoot internet service or broadband provider. And so I reached out to them, and it just was one of those things where it just took us months to kind of nail down the time to meet. I was expecting kind of a generic conversation about how to kind of build out the organization. I found out during the discussion that they actually provide services like project management services and like administrative services for communities that want to do this. So you could contract with them instead of having to build like an entire organization and customer service reps and technical reps and stuff like that. So they do that for a pretty reasonable amount of money. So I came away much more optimistic than I went into the conversation with. I have talked to some members of the Cable Advisory Committee, and Mark, you and I have had this discussion many times. I do think that a Cable Advisory Committee should be more of a technology committee, but I think you have to include the cable component in it, but get that group to kind of reorganize and start looking at this as well. And I think that's kind of the way of the future. Adding a project of this scale to the docket right now is not great, but I think it's something we have to keep moving along, especially as we get more engaged in the franchise renewal, which is going to be happening over the next few months.
Steve, before you move off of that topic, can I just make a couple comments? One is, I've supported a long time that Long Meadow ought to have some kind of internet connectivity for its residents, and whether it's wireless or whatever. I'll tell you, I'm not really sure the town should be the manager of it much anymore, but I think that we ought to be able to get some revenue from it, so maybe it's an outside company that does it soup to nuts and pays us a franchise fee or whatever it is. But I was just wondering, and maybe this is an inquiry to the rest of the select board, to if we should be directing the Cable Advisory Committee to kind of take this on as a project to kind of steward this through, to come to a recommendation of what the town ought to be doing. Kind of get it off our plate, get it off of your plate directly, and let them, whether it's working with Whip City Fiber or, somebody, third party out there to do it. I don't know if people think that that's a...
I don't know why we wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we have it. Right?
Well, it's not direct cable kind of stuff, but it's internet services and, again, more broad technology. So, I'll be glad to draft a letter to them and
Just reinvent them. Yeah, they cable and broadband, we could just expand their role.
Does it have to come from select board, or could it come just from town manager?
It can be a town manager. You can just give them they're advisory to you. So if you're going to direct them to do it, it should come to the select board, but if you wanted to put together a different group, it could be
I'll put together a letter to them and copy everybody in.
Yeah.
It just says, here's what we're looking at. Give them some kind of broad guidelines. Okay, thanks, Steve. So
the other thing is, with the Whip City model, the town would essentially bond its fiber build-out. We would start with a feasibility study. If we have the money in the fall, I would recommend that we pursue the $50,000 for the feasibility study, just to get us going. But I want to say when we did back of the envelope calculations, they had a per mile thing that they felt was, since they've done so much of this, because they are now project managing broadband build out in like 19 towns, mostly hill towns. So they have a lot of experience doing this. They had kind of a per mile thing that put us in the $6 million range for our build out, which we would have to pay for. But then they would they would be doing the marketing of the service. They would go to the residents and kind of do that whole thing.
On the other hand, Stephen, if we proceed with buying our streetlights, potentially we go to have neighborhood Wi-Fi systems or WiMAX systems. Everybody's running around their house with wireless systems anyway, whether it's inside their house or outside their house. Maybe we don't have to build out a lot of the fiber optics based on if we own the street poles.
I should have added that this is all predicated on
owning
two things.
Streetlights.
On owning the streetlights and some number of poles, and we have to establish an MLP.
Right.
There's no way to do this without being a municipal light plan. So that's not that big a deal. You have to apply to the DPU,
Right.
but that's another thing we could be looking at. And then the only other item I did note that the next meeting is during school vacation week, so I will not be here. I will be reachable. I anticipate I'll be checking emails and stuff like that, so if you need me that week. And then Marie had asked for a summary of the Green Communities Grant, so I have that in there as well. I did attend, I see there's something in the packet from Marie under the town manager's report about comments on the metering station. It's in here. I don't know if you guys have that.
What's?
It's in the town manager's report. I don't know. I wasn't aware that was in there, but
There's an email.
an email, Marie's comments that she wants to submit about the metering station. Am I?
Oh, yeah, right.
So the chief, as you know, we sent out a list of questions. The chief did submit that to MIPA, which had a shorter timeline. We will be submitting that same list of questions with a cover letter to the Energy Facility Siting Board. They did have the hearing here last week. I did attend most of it, along with the police chief and fire chief. Mostly a listening session. A lot of kind of global concerns were raised, and we took in the information as much as we could, and are processing it, and are looking forward to getting more information from both Tennessee Gas and Columbia Gas. That's it for me.
Paul, you have anything you want to add?
Yes, I'm pleased to announce that I got a notification mid-last week that for the 4th year in a row now, the town has received the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the FY19 budget in this particular case from a national association, the Government Finance Officers Association. And they define this award as the highest form of recognition in governmental budgeting. So happy to say there's 4 for 4 on this one, and hopefully we'll keep it going.
Great.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments to the town managers? We're going to go back to set the fall town meeting date, and Stephen, there's nothing in our packet.
Yeah, the date, I know Jackie had talked to Karen over here about dates. Their best date, which is fine with me, is November 5th of 2019 to have a special town meeting.
It's Tuesday?
It's a Tuesday.
Is that an election day?
We do not have an election. It is an election day in cities and other communities, but not here.
Okay. That's fine. I'm just wondering if there are going to be people participating in it's an odd numbered year, so it's not like major elections.
Right,
on even year
there's
or
no
something.
state. It would just be municipal elections that will be had in local communities, if anything.
Okay, entertain a motion to set the fall town meeting date for November 5th, 2019.
Second.
Motion's made by Mr. Foster and seconded by Mr. Lowe. Any other concerns? All those in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. And finally, we have a request for a one-day liquor license from St. Mary's for their purse bingo. And it's, everybody's pulled that up, it's
Yeah.
May 4th.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to grant a one-day liquor license for St. Mary's Academy for May 4th, 2019.
Is there a rain date on it?
No, it's an indoor thing.
Indoor thing? Okay, second.
No rain date, okay.
Okay, motion's made by Mr. Lecusen, seconded by Mr. Foster. Any other comments?
And they have a server in there with a tip
They
certification,
got,
looks like?
it's safe serve, same thing.
Safe serve.
Yep.
And it's
Any
been
other-
approved by our chief of police?
Yep. Any other comments?
Yes.
All those in,
Wait.
no, go ahead.
Yes.
On
We need
this,
to just double check their insurance coverage.
Yeah, they've got it attached here.
You have it attached, but the bottom of the application has what the limits are. And I'm not quite sure they meet the limits.
What, it's $750,000 each occurrence?
Yeah, but if you go to the one-day liquor license application towards the bottom,
1 million occurrence, 3 million aggregate. Pretty interesting. Okay, so we'd have to make this contingent upon their insurance meeting our requirements.
Sure.
I mean, I assume they can spend $20 and get up their insurance for the day.
They're on a mission from God.
they still have to spend the $20 and up their insurance for the day. So, is there a, Richard, you made the motion, will you,
I made the motion.
you made the motion, will you
So,
just amend it?
Yeah, amend the motion for approval based on their updating their liability insurance to meet the town's requirements.
Right. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Cusa made the motion and seconded by Mr. Foster. Any other comments? Thank you, Stephen. All those in favor? Motion passes 4-0. So the liquor license, contingent liquor license is granted. Having done that, we are not now going to have an executive session tonight. Our attorney was unable to be here tonight. She's ill. So we're going to postpone our executive session for
Want to pass over what we signed?
10 days, or for 2 weeks till, our next meeting is a Tuesday night, because Monday is Patriots' Day, it's a legal holiday. So our next meeting is not the 14th, is not the 15th, but the 16th, excuse me. Right?
Yep.
So our next meeting is Tuesday, the 16th.
You already signed it, though.
16th of
So I just
April,
want that.
same place, 7 PM, and we will see folks there. I'll accept a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved. Second.
Motion's made and seconded, all in favor? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you folks very much. See you on April 16th. Good night.